Okay.
We'll do that.
Call this meeting to order.
We have no dance.
Pledge of allegiance.
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get into the agenda and all the rest of today, I want to say a couple words of serving on the board with the old campaign Less is More. Les Purcell, you come forward, please, sir.
I didn't do it.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you did. Les, on behalf of the board and the citizens of our community, I want to give you this certificate of appreciation. With sincere appreciation for your community service as a member of the board of directors from 2007 to 2011. This certificate represents a gift certificate to the Ocean Pines Golf Club in the amount of, you can divulge that if you wish.
Just fill it in.
Just fill it in, it's all yours. There's your gift certificate, son.
Why, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the cooperation I had from the board, and most importantly, thanks for the community for allowing me to do this, to serve. I enjoyed it, and good luck going forward.
Okay, move on to approving the agenda. We've got approval of the minutes, 3 sets, president's remarks, liaison appointments, elections committee report, county commissioners report, which I don't think we have at this point. Veterans Memorial Storage Building presentation by Ron Fisher, general manager's report, public comment. Under old business, the fire department contract and relationship. Discuss budget and finance report, process proposal. MO2 with Dave and Jim. New business discussion of board of directors objectives for this coming year. Annual schedule discussion. Advisory board charging documents discussion. Projected action list, PAL motion, bulk mailing, errors and proxy forms, discussions, CPI actions, and Dave, you have suggested we go into a closed session on personnel issues at the end of this meeting. Any changes, additions, adjustments to the agenda? The agenda stands as set. Okay. Moving on to our minutes. First set, July 20th, regular meeting. Any changes, adjustments?
Move we accept.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Accepted. The should say
August 17th.
August
August 17th, regular.
August 17th, special meeting.
Organizational meeting.
Actually, special
There was
meeting.
a special meeting.
August 17th,
We
okay,
have
that's the next
certified
one.
the election. Any changes or adjustments to the minutes?
I move we accept.
I'll second.
Okay. Moving right along. August 17th, organizational meeting. Minutes. Any changes, adjustments, please?
Yeah, I have a couple. On page 2, I would suggest, just for purposes of being precise, the auditors, there was some discussion about this, by the way, TGM Group LLC, to be formal about who it is we're engaging. It's TGM Group LLC, and in the second last paragraph, the word Nest, I think, should be next. A couple others.
Just for a minute.
Okay. Those
With
are
those, I move approval with those.
second. Objection? Okay, remarks from me and liaison appointments. The only comment I have, folks, is at this point, Terry Moore is sitting on a cruise ship in Alaska, and it would be the internet connection to the boat was at gerbil level, extremely slow, so she could not join us, and the cell phone connection price was $2.95 a minute.
So what's the problem?
Yeah, what's the problem?
Make it a shorter meeting.
Make it a shorter meeting and get it over with in 3 minutes. So I did not want to go any further without recognizing the fact that our seventh board member is not here, but on a long-planned vacation. So we will miss her and look for her to join us next time. I also am intending, with the agreement of the rest of the board here, to want to continue inviting advisory board chair people to make presentations at various times during the year on what's going on with their committees.
So,
Second.
yeah.
And that really wasn't a motion.
No.
I just made it into one, so it's on the books.
He may change his mind next month, so,
We're
in the prerogative of the president.
not getting into voice motions again this year.
Right.
Okay.
And-
We think it's a good idea.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't think anybody would object, but just want to make sure you know I do intend to do that. And then the liaison appointments, I will just, each of you, we've discussed via email and discussions and handoffs. I will go down the list just so everyone knows who is where. Architectural review, Dave. Bylaws and resolutions, Dave. Rex and Parks, Bill. Budget and finance, myself. Comprehensive plan, Bill. Environmental and natural assets, Terry. Clubs is Pete. Marine advisory is Ray. Golf advisory is Pete. Communications is Dan. Tennis advisory is myself. Aquatics is Terry. Ocean Pines Volunteer Fire Department, while not officially an advisory group to us, we do want to stay linked with them. So the fire department and the county are Ray's responsibilities. And county waste, you get that one, Bob, the waste treatment. So I just want to make sure we publicly read that into the record as to who is going to be liaison to what.
That list will be part of the minutes, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah. And we will move right along to Diane McGraw, who is subbing for, as some people joked, Judy, you grew quite a bit over the last few months.
Excuse
Turn
me,
over
point
to
of
you for
order.
your presentation. Yes, sir. Bill.
Liaison appoint, did I miss something? Were we supposed?
He just went over.
No. What, were we supposed to have advisory committee appointments?
That's at the end of it.
Yeah, I missed it. Okay.
That's at the end.
Okay.
Okay, so you're,
Should have took it. Were you going to click it? Good. Okay, this is the elections report 2011. Here's your committee appointed by the board of directors. Judy's in her first of 3 years. Kay, Diane, and Kathy are the third year of her third-year term, and John is his second year of his third-year term. And Dave Stevens was appointed the board liaison. Thanks. These are our OPA elections guidelines. We've got the bylaws, we've got the COE, the MU6, we've got past lessons learned, like our past reports of all our election committee. And additionally, we sometimes review this Maryland Homeowners Act. We could not have done the job as a 5-man volunteer committee without the assistance of Teresa and Ruth Ann. They worked full-time with us when we were having meetings and background. Dave was on counting day. He's always an expert with the Scantron. Aug and Vince were our timekeepers, and Tom, Jean, and Carol helped with the registration and pulling out did we have a quorum. Here are the election results. We have Dan and Terry for 2 3-year terms, well, 1 3-year term each. And Bill, you'll be serving the remaining term of Bob Thompson's year, next year. And then you see the other 3, Les, Richard and Victor with the next to below. Next. I thought I'd give you a little bit of a comparison about what kind of results that we had. I couldn't put a percentage across there, so I've included this sheet as the last sheet in your manual or in the packet I gave you. For this year, we had a total of, notice we didn't have any write-ins. It made the process from counting day really easy. People seem to devote most of their attention to actually the total votes for our candidates. You'll see 2010, the number appears to be high, but remember that's the year that we sent out 800 and some extra ballots to second owners to nth grade. You know, you could have 5 owners on one piece of property. The manual votes in 2010, you'll see is 151, but of those, 132 were received from those 2, 3, 4 owners, of which we had to manually process to make sure that it wasn't the first owner, the second owner, or the third owner. So here's some of the return rates. In 2007, we had a 57.2 return rate. In 2008, 40.3. 2009, 48.5. For 2010, we had a 44. We had a 54% return rate, which is really good for this year. And I think a lot of that had to do with not doing write-ins. Made it streamlined. You'll see 2 numbers down here in red. We only avoided 6. Well, you'll see too that the number appears high with the 31 on that. What happened was some of those were avoided because of that second, or their position in the line of ownership. Going to 2011, we had 6 voided ballots, which you'll see the various reasons. 9 ballots didn't get processed because they were wrong address, and there's 52 ballots that never went out, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. The voting results. The annual meeting was August 13th, and we lacked quorum. We need 100 according to our bylaws, and we were at 70. So a special meeting, as you just approved, was held on August 18th to give you our voting results, and you collected. So one of the problems that's documented in the report is proxy. In previous years, we have, at least the 2 years I was the chairman, we utilized sort of a pseudo proxy. In 2009, my first year, we had 101 so we could conduct business, which means you got your minutes approved. We had 2 years behind that had not been approved due to lack of quorum or proxy or quorum. Last year was a very busy annual meeting, as you know. We had 167 people that we counted for proxy, of which 21 we actually accepted the proxy. So it was 167 for quorum, and this year was 70. We believe that a proxy form ought to be available to our membership. In the past, the secretary to the general manager, she would contact those homeowners that own multiple properties. And she would get, for instance, the one year there were 21 proxies received through Phyllis. We believe a proxy form, especially when you read the bylaws here, that is mandated if there will be business during an annual meeting. We can communicate in that form that the proxy form is available in case you want to send in your proxy. We're going to find it probably harder as we go on with the streaming ability of the meetings now, live, right? There's going to be less people attending, we're afraid, the annual meeting to get the proxy. So in your packet, Judy had done one sample of a proxy, and I added one from a homeowners association that we're involved in, and there's also, I've got a couple others we can provide, but if we can assist you with coming up with a straw man and maybe working with Jim Trumbull to make sure we're not in violation of all the declarations that we have to do. Next. Who is our association membership? Remember last year we communicated with the additional 890-some second, third, fourth, fifth owners on a piece of property. Right now what we found is that we're only communicating with the first names on the land deed as registered. That's what's in your database. So financial responsibility, voting privileges, newsletters, news other than your website, which anyone can get to. you're limiting your audience by 950 joint owners. So have we failed when we say we're not communicating with all owners? Because you'll hear something about all members. You'll hear any member of a property. So right now we're picking landowner number one. And what is the actual number? It's funny, we have, how many lots are there? We started to question that. We've heard different numbers, 8442, 8448, 8438. That number should be pretty standard. The number of owners, probably not. During that telephone monitoring time, it's 4 weeks prior to the election, each committee member mans the phones, and we have a monitoring log that we created last year. We found that if there's a late payment, that meant there was interest and they were not placed on the O1 voter eligibility. But we work with those people to say, by the way, you have late payment and you get your money in, and we issued a ballot or a ballot. Same thing with if a member is making monthly payments and hasn't paid, then they're not receiving a ballot. We used the cutoff date of July 8th this year. She's recommending July 1st. The bylaws say so many days from the annual meeting back, and it's like 35 days, I think, so that's why we picked July 8th. But this is a problem. This is an administrative problem somewhere here. The other thing we discovered right at the very end was we were receiving phone calls from people that didn't receive votes or didn't receive a ballot. There's something out there with the U.S. Postal Service. It's called National Change of Address, and I think it's just been augmented in the last couple of years or implemented. Because I know my first year, the contractor talked about it. It's to reduce the number of undeliverable mailings, and unfortunately, there's two types. We send our ballots out first class, pre-sorted. There's also a level of pre-sorted standard class, and we would not have had those 52 ballots, that list of 52 residents that didn't receive a ballot because of this. So how are we going to fix that? Here's examples of why those 52 ballots. On the database, that's what it looked like, 84. It should be lookout point. When you're parsing in a computer, it's picking up 5 Fort Sumter North, and it's really Sumter Space North. St. Martin's was interesting because most of the residents on St. Martin's didn't get it because when the computer parsed it, ST meant street to that. So truncated Martin's Lane, so therefore they didn't get it. So what's going on right now, and I've talked to Ruth Ann, they have taken that list, and these are parsing errors. They're just admin errors, but there's a fair number of addresses out of state. There's one from out of the country. There's some from Bethany. There's only about a handful from Ocean Pines. I'd say maybe 12 of the 52 that didn't get the ballots. So we feel like we have to repair that process because we didn't know about that list. And apparently the previous contractor handed it to the secretary, and as a chairman, previous chair, we never knew about it. So now that we do know about it, we better put it in the election contract to say, hey, we need to see that list, and we need to quickly, with administration, fix that database, and then immediately mail out a voting package. Process improvements from recommendations last year, a contract was awarded, an RFP was sent out for 3 bidders, Minuteman Press was awarded the contract. This is what their contract says they have to do. We're going to have to make sure that we add that red category in there so we get that validation and get that correction in time to get the ballots out. Awarding a contract like that, the 3 bids, one was, I have the price, from the highest to the lowest was a difference of almost $1,000, so it paid to go out on contract. We haven't seen the final numbers yet. There is a budget in your packet as well. And Judy mentions that in her report, the final numbers from your department, I guess, are maybe yet. The good news is MO6, it became our Bible this year because it was just approved last fall, and we utilized it. We had any questions, and we had no write-ins were allowed, so all the votes of anybody casting a vote went to the candidates, which was great. The election budget was created for the first time. You'll see a 2010 as a result of that year, and you'll see the one that Judy created with some of the costs coming out. Campaign signs were not an issue this year. June 1st, the date was honored, and the signs were taken down on time. Duplicate ballots, we tightened up the process. We wanted one employee to take care of it. We created a form. We even created a duplicate stamp that could be processed on this through the Scantron. So that helped us. Candidates forum was successful again. The attendance was about the same. We run about 70, 75. There's a question in your packet whether we should even consider holding it closer to when the votes go out. But that means your signs wouldn't go out as soon. And to let you know that there is an MO6, and everywhere we read is that all the documentation is stored in the admin building in the elections file cabinet. Any questions?
Yes, are the envelopes stored as well as the ballots
Envelopes are
themselves?
stored, and also we have 2008, 9, 10, and 11's notebooks that the chairman keep with
Thank you.
all the publications. But no, the envelopes are kept. We had success with the contractor. I think we're going to have to, there's one thing we didn't do, which we did. There were 130 some ballots sitting in the post office box here in the police department. That morning, we had to open them up, where in the past, their contractor picked them up, merged them in. So I think we'll probably we spent 132 opening envelopes and making sure they weren't part of the duplicate ballots. This year, the duplicate ballots that were issued, they were accepted. Previous year, we had 3 duplicate ballots that people tried to vote twice. They sent their original in and they sent their duplicate in. So we really have tightened up the duplicate process.
Yeah, Diane, it sounds like you've made a lot of progress since our last meeting on the issue of the...
Yeah, I missed that,
yeah.
On
Yeah,
the postal department and especially...
Have you talked to the, or anybody, talked to the postal department about this?
Well, apparently these 50-some did not go out at all. And it has to do with running it through, it's a standardized software package, I guess the printers use.
Right, well, there were 2 questions. Okay, one is how to avoid it, and it sounds like you're working on that, by
That's what
identifying the
we're
ones that
doing.
came back and fixing the problems. The second question was, given that it happened, or it might conceivably happen in the future, is there a way to find out that they were not mailed in time to
Yes.
correct the
The answer
problem?
is yes, because last year we gave the printer 2 eligibility lists, one early and one at the cutoff date. This year, because we had a new contractor, we gave him 1 list in time to do all the printing. So he runs that through before all the printing. He checks it with the post office. But
Okay.
here's an idea of the length of the list. This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And the ones in yellow are Ocean Pines, and the other ones are out of state. Ruth Ann did a great job. You saw that there were, only 6 ballots that we didn't accept because of wrong addresses. She kept, every time she got something in, she'd send it out. These were never mailed because of that process that we didn't. We knew about the process, but we didn't know about this listing.
You didn't know that they were not mailed?
Right.
Simple as that.
So the committee was never notified by the post office that these never went
You
out?
know, or the
Right.
printing contractor. The printing contractor is the one that puts us through the scan.
Okay.
So, again, we're going to keep tightening up until it's right. MO6 internal was just great. I'm glad that we got through that, because that became our other Bible besides the bylaws.
And my other question has to do with this proxy. We didn't do any proxy work calls this year,
None this year. Nope.
selecting people to call and all
No.
that.
No.
The committee is advising, actually, this is up to you guys to decide what to do.
I don't agree with that.
That's fine.
Yeah, because
Um,
I will
Kevin?
say one thing, but most homeowner, and this homeowner guy doesn't, this homeowner Maryland, really doesn't talk about proxies to the point.
Right.
But every homeowner association, I'm in 4 right now, we get a proxy.
Absolutely.
And we give it to a person, not a committee, and so she had changed that to chair. Or you can write in.
Tom, would you care to move that proxy discussion up now while Diane's here and Jim's here?
Sure, that's fine.
I mean, she's already taken away one, so...
I know. Yeah, the post office is
Forget
okay.
about this vote, you already know about
Go
it.
for it.
Okay, the proxy, we do not have a proxy form, and I agree with the committee that we should have proxy forms. But there are 2 kinds of proxies, okay, that are allowable by our bylaws and by MO6.
resolution that we passed. There is no such thing as general proxy that is allowed, period. And our bylaws prohibit it, and our NRO6, I don't want to say validates, but supports the bylaws in that. The first kind of proxy that's allowed and has been used in the past in a very informal way is the proxy to establish a quorum. And in the past, Mrs. East has simply called people up and said, send me a letter, okay? And they did, and she used that exclusively to establish a quorum, period. The second kind of proxy, which is allowed in the bylaws, is a proxy for an issue that has been established in the notification of the meeting. That is to say, 60 days or more prior to the meeting. It's established, it's coming in. There are specific restrictions to what that issue can be. It's basically a yes-no vote. You might say, boy, that sounds like a referendum to me. It's not quite a referendum. It's not. Because, in fact, it will be brought up unlike a referendum, it will be brought up at the meeting and discussed and voted upon at the meeting. So there is a difference. But the key
That's
thing...
going to put some, that second proxy, Dave, is that assigned to a person to vote it that particular way? And so it's very clear on the proxy how they want that vote cast, correct? It's not...
May I
Yeah, go ahead, keep going.
ask that Jim Trammell suspend the meeting, just so that he's there. He doesn't have to answer the question, but he has to tell me when I'm being done.
It's Jim's job.
Right.
It's for both of us.
Does it well. Yes, it can, as far as I know, it can be assigned to anybody. It can be assigned to the secretary, it can be assigned to, and the proxy form, which you don't have, by the way, would have to say that. Now, the problem comes in that the proxy form would have the issue on it and place to put the yes-no vote on the issue. Therefore, every proxy would have to be different in that it's attached to that specific issue. So there is no general proxy which says, hey, anybody can vote on anything that comes up at the meeting. The bylaws specifically prohibit that. Okay, so
you can't, putting it in language that I might understand, I can't assign my vote to somebody who's sitting there to vote however they want to for me at that meeting. I have to, in advance, have said what I want.
And you have to, in advance, have said what you want. It's it's very similar to a referendum vote. And I believe that what we can do and probably should do is create a template for that, wherein you would have a proxy form which would have where the signature goes and the assignee and
There's a couple of
and then fill in the blanks as far as the issue, the specific, and the issue would have to be exactly like it is in the notification. It's a little more complicated than that, too. In addition to the issue itself, the question itself, there also has to be provided room to say the rationale for the, in other words, the similar types of things that you would add to a referendum.
background discussion.
But it's,
But if it's a referendum and you stated it, 60 days in advance, wouldn't it be part of the voting through the Scantron, like when we have the bylaws approved, or if there's an issue about should we do the community center versus not the community center? Wasn't that through the Scantron?
Diane brings up a very good issue. In preparing this template, you would like it to be prepared in such a way that it could be counted by the Scantron. I don't know the mechanics
And there are
of that.
some rules in the bylaws about these sort of issues, and I think in number 6 that you have to have it put before the membership. That's the time you get the annual meeting notice, so that you know it's an election and a referendum. You can have both in one cycle.
Well, and there's another point that gets involved here too, and that's what exactly is a specific issue. For example, in the annual meeting, if you have a quorum, you are voting to approve the minutes that are outstanding of previous annual meetings. So would you then define issues as anything that would be voted upon in the annual meeting by the members attending?
No.
Okay, so then how do you define that?
Well, you can go to the bylaws and you can see the first sentence of, what is it, 3.03, Jim? In the bylaws, that is pretty clear that it has to be an issue in the notification. It has to be a yes/no vote. It has to be, it's not simply an approval of the minutes.
Well,
But it's,
beating a dead horse, in fact, the approval of the minutes is part of the agenda.
yeah, that's right, and it is in the...
And it is a yes/no vote, and it meets the test that you've been throwing up here at the moment. The only reason I'm bringing this out is because I think that there is a rather interesting question in there about how do you define the issues that you're going to provide proxy yea or nay votes for. In other words, how are you going to restrict those, and to what authorization do we have to make that decision?
I think we have two issues here that I'm going to take off the table, because I believe that the issues have been cast. The committee has got, you're addressing the mailing issue, you're addressing the proxy. I think all of these are very valid questions as to what does our proxy form look like, what is it allowed to look like. The issue I will add to the mix, not for debate here, but it's one that I think needs to be resolved, is just what is the autonomy or lack of autonomy of the Elections Committee in the charter of our organization and the bylaws. Who actually has say over what goes on in an election? Is it the Board of Directors ultimately that has to approve this proxy form, or is it the Elections Committee? We could debate that. I don't actually know the answer to that. I've read the documents. I'm not clear on it yet. I know that, Dave, you think the board has the right to do that, and that you may very well be right on that. I'm not here to argue that point. But I do think we need to resolve that issue, and that's going to take some legal assessment as to who has the authority to approve the proxy. Is it the Elections Committee, or is it the Board of Directors?
Yeah, and you'll see on page 4, I didn't bring it up in my briefing, but you'll find
Of your report?
of Judy's report, the election report. I folded the corner. She had two questions to ask. One was, as the standing committee appointed by the board, what is our authorities?
Right.
We have a budget, are we allowed to, that budget's been approved, are we allowed to spend it? It's the same thing with the letter we wanted to send out to communicate. We're probably one of the only standing committees. You have a lot of advisory committees.
Correct. You're a standing committee, you're not an advisory committee. There may be a difference.
Yeah.
I underline the word may.
Right.
So what
I would think
you-
there has to be a
well,
difference.
that's
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
could be.
All right.
Let's just
But you're not proposing that for
Of course,
today.
there's a difference.
Yeah, there's a difference, and I think what we do is go back, do some homework. I'll look for Judy to do that.
And we'll be glad as a committee to come up with a draft proxy and talk about some of these issues.
Dan is the secretary this year. You'll be working with Judy on the Elections Committee. And I would like to just try to get this resolved and on the agenda for the next meeting. See if we can't get this resolved. Okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think that what we've said is there's general agreement, they really ought to have a forum, right?
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Okay. So just, fine.
Yeah, well,
I guess it's
I mean, the concern is, and I've been tracking this since the last meeting and before that, and the concern is that a proxy form, be developed that is in fact not in accordance with NL6 and is in fact not in accordance with section 3.303 of the bylaws. That's already happened.
Fair enough.
And as a matter of fact, it's not just the Elections Committee. What's overriding here is the bylaws and the resolutions, and which is very much why Jim and I spent a good deal of time, going through this. So it must conform to that, and those are, in fact, board issues.
Thank you, Dave, that helps me understand
Yeah,
it.
that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The other side of that, it's not a matter of an argument, is that they come out of our charter. They're not empowered by the board as an advisory group. They were created out of our charter. So it goes back to the autonomy one way or another. We got to solve it. I think it's resolvable.
Right.
we all agree there ought to be a proxy, and it ought to be the right thing, it ought to follow the rules.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, Diane, and your committee and everybody, and for all your work. Sounds like we're about to be decimated on that committee, though.
Yeah, well, you can have 2 3-year terms.
Well, yeah, well, it's 2 and 1 for you guys as well?
It's, right now, all of us are in our first term, finishing up our first term or in the first term. So we can all do another 3 years. All committees.
No,
There's another
it's 3-2-1.
question. They on the
3-2-1. 3-2-1.
It's correct to say 3 years, but it's 2 and 1.
Oh, okay, okay.
2 different
All right,
appointments.
okay.
You need 3 appointments to get 6 years.
We will, we'll be very, okay.
And Diane, it's 3-2-1. The first appointment is 3 years, second appointment is 2 years, and then
That's all I was trying to
And
clarify.
if you really
if
do a
you're
great
really-
job, you get that final year.
Now you have to stay out of here before
or
you
you're
can go
really
back.
subject for professional help here.
Moving right along, Ron Fisher, you've got the floor, sir.
I'm here representing the Veterans Memorial Foundation
You have
today.
a packet in, drawings in your packet, gentlemen.
And we have a letter of understanding with the association that prior to any construction on the peninsula, we would seek approval from the board to move forward. And that's what I'm here for today. We currently lease a facility for storage, which is off-site, that requires our volunteers to acquire a truck to transport our tents and flags and other items that we use for our ceremonies to the memorial. What we're asking for today is permission to build a storage facility on the peninsula, and to, if you could envision the memorial, tentatively, we're looking at constructing it to the right of the memorial so that it doesn't interfere with the aesthetics of the memorial itself. But we have to comply with the coastal zone management setback of 25 feet from the water. So I can't give you an exact location, and did not want to pursue the survey and permitting prior to getting approval from the board. But I can assure you I would work with Bob and Tom and let them know what sites we were finally able to get permitted. Our projected completion date for this project, if approved, would be Memorial Day. The funds have been contributed to the memorial through a generous donor to construct this facility. And we would remove the existing storage box, which is somewhat of an eyesore, which sets to the left of the podium, usually where we have the speaker's tent. It's about a 7-8 foot white box that we keep some items in over there. The construction, and I believe you all have this in your packet, would be on a structural slab with 8-foot walls of cinder block with brick facing, and the brick facing would match the existing memorial. The roof would be a metal roof, probably green, with white metal doors that would be constructed such that it would not be easy for someone to break into the facility. We would like to make provisions for humidistat fans, so we run electric to the facility just in case we had an issue with humidity. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. But again, I think this would be a real plus for us to have our flags and our tents and stuff right adjacent to the memorial.
Questions?
Yes, Ron, I can be totally wrong here, so you're the authority as far as I'm concerned. And I think we need an answer on this one. I believe that Ocean Pines, in an agreement with the Veterans Memorial Foundation, actually has retained ownership of both the property and all of the memorial facility itself. And the foundation is simply responsible for maintenance of that facility. If that's correct, then we're in a position where we also are looking at proceeding with construction as we would normally proceed with construction in Ocean Pines, which means you have to go through a full permitting process, including the CPI and all of that. I'm curious, is that in your plans?
Yes.
And then that's what you meant when you said permitting
Yes.
process.
Yeah.
And at the end, you would turn title to this building over to Ocean Pines as part of the Ocean Pines
It would
property?
be the same as the memorial itself.
Okay, so there would be some form of contract defining that?
There is a letter of understanding that we have.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
In addition, and in keeping with that letter of understanding.
Okay, so that's, thank you.
Ray?
A motion to approve for
Second.
discussion.
Bill?
Second.
Second. Okay, we're going to institute, get out your paper and pen and write down your motion.
Yeah, I was just going to ask what it is what the motion is.
I thought it already has a motion written down, isn't it? Wasn't
That was for the fire department. Not for this. So, Ron, you changed from the roof color to green
I did.
at this point. Okay. I did.
Thank you.
To match those trees,
Well,
then.
to match the trees, yes, that was one of the most energetic discussions we had about which was the roof
Had a
color.
neighbor once, who put the foundation of his house, he did like an olive green, it didn't, imagine the grass.
I'm ready if you want to.
Go ahead.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the requested construction of the storage unit as presented.
I'll second that.
One more time, please.
Make a motion to approve the request of the construction of the storage unit as presented.
At the Veterans Memorial.
Yeah.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming in. Thanks for whoever's paying for this. Heartfelt thanks. Very nice. Very generous of whoever's doing that. Okay. Okay, we have to. We're going to General Manager's report.
Run through.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, GM reports. It's going to be brief today. I know there's a long agenda, so I'm going to just run through some items. Rec and Parks, we had a promotion in Recreation Parks for those that may not have caught that or seen that. Sonia Bounds, who has been here for a number of years, and she was next in line behind Mike Howe, really stepped up through the summer and has done a fantastic job for us. Really, really pleased at her level of enthusiasm and stepping in to make things happen. And she's been promoted to our Rec and Parks Director. Another element that I wanted to point out with Rec and Parks, which was kind of a fun fact for us, I share the email that we received from Dean Langrel, Director of Sales at Bay Shore Development, which is the Sally Rogers Group. And but there was, we sold approximately, if you remember, we had a lot of new initiatives this year, one of which was offering discount theme park tickets. Our residents participated in approximately $27,000 in purchases of these theme park tickets. And at the discounted price,
That was approximately an $8,000 savings for our residents for these. So just, again, when you're looking at programs, you always try to measure, you start it and you see, try to measure how they're working out. So that was very good. Another point of reference for Rec and Parks, home shows coming up 1st and 2nd of October. Police department just solved a burglary. And it was it was a grand burglary, which was the amount of just over $50,000, and it was a pretty a good situation. One of the most expensive items that were stolen out of someone's house was a Babe Ruth signed baseball. So it was a collector item, and it was something very personal to the member who lost it. So they did a very, very good job in recovering all the merchandise there. So real pleased with that. Another fact that just instead of doing all the stats with the pools, I just thought I'd point a stat out from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We had 74,931 visits to our pools, all 5 pools. And we double-checked that 3 times to make sure that number, it seemed like a high number, but if you combine with last year weekly numbers up to that, that's where our numbers end up. Pretty good fact for us. Some personnel changes. I already mentioned Sonia. Eddie Wells has stepped up to fill a big gap where Carrie Nelson had left us. Eddie was already running, Public Works in a lot of ways, so that's been very, very good for us. We've had a change in management at the Yacht Club. You guys have an email, or at least a handout of the email on that. In looking at Carrie's position and some of our future needs with the organization, I'm putting together a new position. It's not as we're not adding someone for budgetary purposes. What we're doing is just dividing some of the work. And in lieu of hiring someone to oversee what Eddie's group does, because I feel Eddie can do that, we're going to look at refilling the position with someone that has facility management, project management, some of the things that we're lacking that we always have to go to outside sources to help us with. We're developing a job description that I think is going to be more beneficial in the long term for the association. And lastly, Ms. Phillips is still out on medical leave. I get asked that question a lot, so I thought I'd go ahead and share that with everybody.
Bob, what
Yes, sir.
The promotion for Eddie Wells means what? I'm sorry, I don't know what he was doing before.
He's overseeing the public works staff and the maintenance and all those operations.
So he's overseeing what I would call traditional public works operations?
Yes.
Okay, and you would be looking then for someone to add functionality as described in your little note about
Yes.
to replace Carrie?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And what about CPI?
It's current. I'm still trying to, when we get the descriptions, they're either going to go report to Eddie, as they are now, or to the new position.
Okay, sorry. When you get the description.
CPI,
Yeah.
okay, is part of Public Works right now.
Right.
Okay. When I'm writing the job description now for the new position, okay?
New Public Works position.
New Public Works position.
Okay.
More facility management along that line.
But encompassing CPI.
At this point, it looks like it'll encompass CPI as one of the pieces. Yes. Yes, sir.
Make it clear, the new position is not an additional position, it's Carrie's old position redefined?
Correct.
Okay.
Admin building, we are making some changes here. We're doing some redesign with the front admin section. I have Public Works was kind enough, anybody knows Joe Costello, he loves his big prints, so he was kind enough to run some of his sketches up here for me this morning that I could share with you guys, because it's conceptual right now what we're working on. What these are, if you notice at the front, first let me start by saying the admin buildings had very little work done to it over the years. If you look at the carpet's almost 20 years old. The window treatments, if you jiggle them at all, they're going to fall down on you. We found that out when we were doing some work in the other room. They're been stapled together. They're over 20 years old. We have money set aside for reserved for replacement budget items to redo some of these things. We've just never pulled the trigger to do any of it. If you walk through the building, walk through some of the admin offices, you'll see the carpet's worn down. It looks gray. It's not really the floor coming up. It's just worn out, stains, dirty. It's just. So we're looking at, when we started looking at replacement of that, I started looking at reallocation of our team members to figure out how we can be more efficient. One of which was, how do we have a more efficient operation at the front desk? Certainly during the summer months when we have the most traffic, it's very congested, it gets very loud, and it's just not as smooth operationally for our folks. If you stand behind the desk, the countertops are varying levels, which makes it difficult for our staff either to lean over or to get things back. But it's just not conducive to a smooth, quick transaction, which then slows down and inhibits good customer service. So we're looking at redoing the countertop, separating to 3 very distinct windows, so when someone comes up to sign up for swim, sign up for golf, wherever they have a little bit of privacy, not unlike a bank. When you come up to a bank, there's a little space with separate windows. In addition to that, we're going to dedicate some space for one-on-one consultations about payment plans, collections, foreclosures, those types of conversations. Ruth Ann's trying to have it far end of the counter. Well, quite frankly, the folks may not have paid, but they don't deserve to have their lack of payment heard by others. I just think that's just
Personal situation.
it is. And we
Very personal.
we don't have space dedicated for that. So part of our arrangement is give Ruth Ann an office where she can sit and actually work through those with individuals without the embarrassment of other people hearing it. Expansion of the marketing department. Anybody walks into the office up there, you see we've got boxes. Actually, Mr. Parks made a comment to me one day. He says, "Is that a storage office or is it an office?" Because it's made boxes of materials and those
Yes.
things. Yeah, it's both.
All of the above.
So we're making some
I see
arrangements.
4 workstations on this, not 3. Can you?
Yes, there's three primary. So if you notice, one on the far left is slightly lower with the countertop. Okay, that
I can't tell that.
far left of your sheet
Okay.
is slightly lower. You see the countertop dips?
Okay, yeah, okay, all right,
Okay.
all right, got it.
That will remain that height because that's for handicap accessible.
Okay, good.
When you first come in, the first countertop will stay at that level. And that's by design. Okay? Storage space, we're in desperate need of storage space. I believe we have the space in the facility, we just need to arrange it a little differently. Right now, we actually store documents in the Pioneer Craft Club back section, which isn't very controlled area from moisture and those type of things for that particular storage. And I don't know why our records have just been stored there, so we're making some changes. And we're going to reallocate some meeting space. One of the goals is to have our meeting space, and we're starting to do it now, especially for the evening meetings, to make sure if the space is available at the community center, we have the empty rooms in there, and we have staff on site until 10 p.m. Our meetings should be over there. They shouldn't be given a key to have access to this entire facility at night. It just doesn't make sense. Again, it's just part of trying to run it a little more business-like. So we're looking at, we will not completely eliminate meeting space here because we do have the space for it, but what we're going to do is our primary goal is to have the evening meetings across in the building that we already have staff on site, and then this as an alternative site. Everything that we're doing will be in-house with the exception of carpets. I'm getting bids on carpets. I don't have them for you guys yet. The ones I've received in are all under the 15, just under the 15,000 range. One was at 19. I'm just looking at those and asking, when you ask for 3 or 4 bidders and you get that wide a range, I'm trying to figure out what it is because it's all commercial grade carpet. And it comes in different levels. I'm learning more about carpet than I really need to, but part of the process. So other than that, all the rest are well within something that I intend to just keep going unless you guys say, no, today we don't like this, but it's well within the limits of what I have to do, and we have the money.
What do you mean it's well within? I mean, it's within...
It's below $15,000 in renovation work with the exception of the carpet.
Yeah, and which part of the budget would this come out of?
This will come out of reserve for replacement.
Yeah, sure.
We have the funding for it.
Bob, you mentioned the requirement for additional storage space. Have
Yes.
you also been looking at alternative storage methods, including digital conversion of paper documents and things like that?
We'd love to do that, yes. That'll be part of our technology as we move forward. Is we've scanned the majority of our stuff, but we still have some older stuff from years ago that hasn't been scanned that we keep the records on, paper records.
This closet used to be famous for that.
Don't open the closet. So we are working on cleaning those up. Our records, our filing cabinets with the majority of the folders that we have, we're going through each folder now and rebuilding them. I think you checked one out last night to look at. All those folders are going to be in that type of documentation stored in our fire safe cabinets. But we still have some need for storage. We have the room here. We just need to allocate it better. And I think we can.
But you are looking at alternatives too, in terms of electronic storage.
Yes.
And that has become relatively acceptable form of storage legally now, in terms of documents, certainly at the federal level.
Yes.
And I have no idea if that applies down here, but it's worth looking at.
Yeah, we do scan. All our current information has been scanned.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions about this? Any concerns? Facilities, just to keep you guys abreast of where we are with the facilities update. A couple things happening. We went in late June. We put the RFP got posted for the country club. You guys know that because we've talked about it before. We asked for, the bids came back. By the next week, we looked at it. We made a selection. It was Becker Morgan that did, that's working through that process. We're expecting that final evaluation to come back later this week. Part of the delay there, quite frankly, occurred when, as I've said, we're going to do it concurrently with the yacht club. Okay, we just need to start one or the other. When we're looking at some of the yacht club, there's some additional work that we realized that we may ask for. We went back to Becker Morgan and said, can you include some of these additional studies in the country club report, which we asked for with the RFP for the yacht club that we didn't originally on the country club. Just, yes.
What is Becker Morgan's expertise, Mr.?
They architectural firm, evaluation, mechanical. They have, and I have all of their sheets. You're welcome to come look at my office. They have the gamut, licensed.
Full range of.
Yeah,
structural engineering.
Yes.
When you say, but their contract at the moment is simply evaluation of what needs to be done?
Correct. They're evaluating the current condition of the facility.
Right.
The mechanicals, the life cycle or life expectancy of the mechanicals, based on the age of them and what the continued moving forward, how long we can expect to keep them in their current state. Okay. And they're going to give us, here's what the current is, if we were to do some renovations, what we could expect, what we would need to replace, and thirdly, if we rebuild. So I'm trying to get all three pieces so we have a lot of good information to make those decisions.
What's the thirdly if we rebuild part of it? I'm sorry.
If we were to reconstruct, tear down and rebuild a new structure. If we're going.
But I guess I don't understand what the information is that would be associated with that. I understand that they're
in its current condition. If we're just to replace the building, they're giving us some ideas of what it would cost to replace it in its current condition.
The one thing
condition. In its current building, current size, shape, design.
But one of the things that you didn't mention, I think you did, but very quickly, is that part of their evaluation is structural, and I believe you and I have talked about the fact that that's an intrusive structural examination.
Yes.
And Dave, from my perspective, I'd suggest that that's probably going to be the deciding factor on replace versus remodel.
Yes.
Well,
probably.
So
there's a lot of.
That's why I said probably.
Of issues wrapped around that. That's why I'm trying to pinpoint.
This is clean. Okay, I'm giving you guys the reports. You will be able to look at those and dissect those much greater detail once I have the information available.
Simple question, what was the amount of that contract?
I'll have to get back to you. I don't have it right here in front of me.
Under 15?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know that, but
Yeah.
what, I mean, ballpark.
I'm not,
You don't know.
I don't want to give you a ballpark because I'd be making it up.
Okay.
I can get it for you after the meeting.
I like that, yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Dave, you mentioned there are several issues that are in that. What are those issues?
Well, I mean, first of all, with the starting assumption that you're going to build what you have. I mean, so the value of knowing you're going to replace what you have is definitely a very limited value. In terms of the country club, what you're going to do with it has been an issue. It has been studied. We do have a result. That result was approved by both the previous committee and the board. Okay, so that's what I mean by the issue. I mean, to say that we're going to rebuild the same country club and it's going to cost X amount of dollars is hopefully not a relevant piece of information. Hopefully there'll be more thought.
So then there is a issue, not issues.
What?
There is an issue, not issues.
Oh, no, I think there are many more issues. First of all, that is multiple issues in terms of the use.
I'm not to be rude. I think a lot of this will get cleared up when I can present the information.
That's
It's
where
going to
I'm
make it a
at.
lot
Okay.
simpler. Right now, it's just we're getting
Speculating.
factual data, so we can give you, here's where it is, here's some, and it'll come with recommendations, it's going to come with a business plan. You're going to get everything you need to make a decision, and that decision may be, we don't like any of it, move in a different direction.
Okay, so now you're getting into the more issues, if you will. It's going to come with the business plan. So in fact, this is not just, I mean, from whom? Becker Morgan?
I'm developing a business plan. Look, I'm not going to go,
Let me step in here. Well, part of the issue here, folks, is when you try to present information on an ongoing project in an iterative fashion, there are always the wants of the final document and the final report to already be done. They're not done yet. There are expectations, which we know are expected, business cases, those kinds of things. I think this is an interim report as to where we are, which is what Bob is trying to tell us. There are still a lot, to today's point, there are still a lot of issues that need to be resolved here, but we're not answering them now. Is, to me, what I see here is a list of dates, expectations, bids, things that are going on, that you've got going on. It's an update on an ongoing process. And, unless there's something specific about the RFPs or those kinds of things, I would suggest we move on. Because the expectation clearly is a full business case and a full assessment, which we have to have before we can make the final decision. Any objections to that? Okay, let's move on.
okay. And keeping with that theme, we put together an RFP for the yacht club. It was posted in late August. We had a meeting scheduled, and that happened to be the Friday that hurricane was blowing through. We had one individual come to that meeting. So and instead of just accepting that one, we thought it was wise to take a step back and send another notice out and ask for other folks that may have been interested that got changed because of the weather conditions to come back. So that delayed it. Yes.
How would you characterize the nature of the RFP for what kinds of services? I've heard reference to life cycle analysis. Tell us what is actually being...
In layman's terms, it's basically the current condition of the facility, and both evaluations are extremely aggressive. They're not just looking, we're actually opening up walls, we're looking at some things so they can see the actual conditions of the structure. The RFPs are on the website. They've been out there since the dates they were posted. You're welcome to see them if you'd like printed copies, I can get them to you. But they are a more invasive approach to looking at the facility. So we can, again, when something...
So it's a full evaluation
Yes.
and an invasive in some cases to really understand what it is we have in the current condition.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then the bids are due back this Friday for the yacht club. And then from there, we'll review the bids, make recommendations, and potentially move forward with someone to do the work.
Oh, good.
And again, it's just an update, trying to keep you all updated on where we are.
Expectation setting, we're looking at the board receiving something by November.
Probably November.
November.
I was trying to get it in October, but with some of the delays, and again, something like this, I don't want to rush through and miss some big steps, so we're trying to gather all the pertinent information, so when we bring it, we'll have a clear direction, so you guys can say, hey, we like this, let's go here, we don't like it, let's move in this direction. So I'm guessing we're going to have that information at the November board meeting, depending on Thanksgiving.
We're going to have that.
It'll move up. Yeah. No, I'm saying depending on when we press that board meeting, so.
Yeah, may I suggest that we have that information, if we're going to discuss the information at the November board meeting, that we get the information before the November board meeting in an adequate amount of time, I'd say a week, to be able to read it and digest it.
It may be December.
That would be fine. If it's December, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, you have to understand what it is that you're looking at, and this is relatively important.
Well, we may actually, the importance of this, we may very well call a special meeting.
I think a special meeting is very appropriate.
One sub, I agree with that.
Okay, lastly, by the numbers, just run through them with you all. We're still, bottom line, bottom right corner, which is the most important for the organization as a whole, we're still $53,000 ahead of budget overall. We have a couple spots, Public Works, Public Safety. A lot of these were just due to additional hours that were focused on hurricane prep and then cleanup afterwards. We just had additional man hours involved. Aquatics is slightly off in the numbers. I think what we did there was a lot of that's manpower related. When we had some additional CPOs and some additional expenses that we need to sharpen up moving forward. Golf is ahead of budget. Beach club's ahead of budget. Yacht club, we did not look at we didn't have a meeting where we discussed it for July. July were actually positive numbers, but the aggregate July and August combined with where we were early season puts us at about $81,000 in the red against budget for the yacht club. Okay? So the end of, and you guys have all those breakdowns in your financial reports.
Yeah, Bob, one of the, well, clearly at this point, you already announced a change. And I know we've had this sort of written as discussion. We're also going to be taking a look at the hours of service at this point to see what we do and don't do going forward, what makes sense, what doesn't.
I'm sorry, would you?
Hours of open, hours, those kinds of things.
Okay.
Just to take a look at what the next steps ought to be at this point, because obviously we made a change, which the hours of service needs to be looked at as well, all of those things at this point. Because we lost the upside this summer.
I feel obligated to point out that when Bob gives these numbers, he's not giving the full picture of the performance of the association. This is the operating amount. We have two other items that enter into how we do versus budget, and that is transfers and debt service, principal payments and debt service. Those track very closely to budget, but this is only the operational piece of it. Those other two, in fact, I think the treasurer's report, as you'll look at it, shows $47,152 negative to, positive to budget. Excuse me, that's wrong. 55,024 versus his 53,654. Okay, that's a couple grand. But it also could be more than a couple grand. For example, new capital, we budget that as part of our zero-based budgeting. We budget zero for the three elements. This is one of the three elements. The other two should track very closely to the budget, but don't always. So I just point that out. So it's $2 grand different.
Yes.
But it could be 52 grand different or 100 grand different. Suppose we had the need for new capital expenditures that were not budgeted. That would indicate a negative variation from our budget. So I just point that out.
Yeah, Mr. President, I think we also ought to point out that the number that stands out that Bob didn't mention is the actual net center column. Although we're measuring ourselves against our planning ability and our budget for the course of the year, the actual performance of the yacht club, for example, was a positive $19,610. It was a loss. It was below our planned amount by $80,000. So people need to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In other words, it was considerably worse than we planned, and it's considerably worse than we've done in previous years.
The difference is that as most of us know, but just to state the summer sessions where we have to make our profit and make our money, and not only did we not make money, we lost money.
Well, but the point is, to Dave's point about considerably worse, I think that that's an interesting interpretation. What I'm looking at are just actual performance numbers, and in fact, it made a profit. Now, $19,000 is there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not what we needed it to be, which is what our budget is.
The business
And
plan,
I think people need to, it's well below business plan, and that's always the issue.
If I may, more to the point, it's supposed to make a profit in the summertime. It always makes a profit in the summertime. It's supposed to make a big profit in the summertime, and it's only making a little profit. That's bad. Just so everybody understands it. And Bob, I'm not trying to beat up on it.
Oh, no, look, I'm positive. You give the opposite, I always give the
Let's tell
positive.
it like it is.
And I did. I led with the 80,700. I can't be any more
If you look
focused
at
than that.
comparisons to last year's, you'll
bad.
see that. The other point that I'd just like to make on this is, and the general manager can speak to this, I think it was at least 2 sessions ago, it was before the August meeting, when we recognized that things were going not well, okay, and I think we saw that the principal reason it was going not well was because of salaries, basically.
that and banquet.
Banquet too. But in terms of, I thought there would be a correction there, yet, if you look at the yacht club right now and you look at the costs of the expenses, wages, and benefits, again, that's, $11,000 for the month over the budget, which is your budget.
I agree. That's why I led with it. I mean, if you're not going to get an argument with me on it, I'm taking steps to correct it.
Yeah, I think what Bob is suggesting is not a rosy picture here, but some issues, and I believe he just announced earlier a change in management at that particular facility. So,
Well, if you want to couple the two, then that's a whole nother discussion, and that I don't know is necessarily warranted. I would not have mentioned that at all, actually, because it's not relevant. The other question I have,
Bill, I'm coming your way, man. Go ahead.
in terms of golf operations, which are actually ahead of budget in terms of, as you point out, but, there's an issue that's been publicized in the papers but has not been discussed or addressed by the board. And that issue is partially reflected, I think, if you look, for example, at the revenues for the month of August. Now, we did real well in the spring. Say we, taking credit for Billy Casper's work. And now we're not. Okay, we're not this month. And, I would make a huge bet that we won't next month and we won't through the preceding following year. So this is not a rosy picture. And I don't know that this is the appropriate time and place, but I do think we need to have a discussion about golf. It's overdue, I believe. I believe we need a discussion on what happened to our drainage program. And we all agreed back at the budget to not to wait until the expertise of Casper could be brought to bear. And I agree with that. Okay. The corollary to that was that we would have from Casper a plan to say how we should go forward In other words, they would have the time to examine the drainage program, look at the course, understand everything there is. And I'm not talking about just what's happened to the golf course recently. I'm talking about the drainage plan. Now, do we have scheduled a meeting from Casper to come in and talk to us about that?
Is that a question?
Yes.
I've met with them numerous times about it. Is there one scheduled for the board? Not yet. Would you like one?
Yes, I would like one, and I'd like
do it.
And I would like to know when yet is. I mean, when is it going to?
When would you like it? They're not going to give drainage yet because, quite frankly, that'll be in next year's budget. It's not a budgeted item this year. When we build it, we will include the drainage project. So we've been talking about that as part of the entire course. But if there's something specific and you have a time frame, be more than happy to have them come speak to the board.
Well, I would like to know sometime before we have a new, how do you want to say, budget process actually comes up later in this meeting. I think before that budget process starts, I think that's one of the biggest, not one of the biggest, but it's certainly a large budget issue, and I think we want to be informed on it by our management. I mean, and I would think we ought to be in time for us to make reasonable decisions about what we do in the budget. Not at the time of the budget when we get these numbers.
Point well taken, Bill.
I think, looking at the year-to-date on these numbers, obviously that's important. But I think more significantly than looking at the year-to-date, look at the actual month. This month is August, which should be one of the high months, one of the 2 or 3 high months of the year, and that's where the focus really needs to be, because that is affecting, obviously, the year-to-date. And when you look at the month of August, all up and down the line, things aren't, I don't know if we didn't budget accurately, or I'm assuming we did using past numbers, but it just, it's not good. I mean, when you look at the differential, the actual month and what was budgeted and what actually happened with the yacht club, and a few other things, it really gives proof to the fact that things weren't happening. While I have the floor, as opposed to Dave's request for Casper, since if we're asking for him to speak to the board, is there not a motion needed for that, or we just do that on one member's interest? Should we not have a motion to do that?
Let me just respond to that. I didn't hear a request for a motion.
I didn't hear that.
What I heard was Dave saying he'd like that, and Tom saying we'll take that under advisement at the point. But I don't think, my 2 cents is this. Clearly we have some issues, current and more importantly long-term, and we need to do that. The budget process is coming rapidly on us. My suggestion would be that at the October meeting that Bob give us a general manager's report and assessment based on where we are and what he has learned and what he's learned from Casper. And then we can, as a group, then decide what additional actions or involvement we as a board would like to undertake. But I think asking today for a meeting with Casper is premature. Although part of me wants to do that. I'd rather hear from our general manager a more detailed assessment, and I would hope to be able to do that at the October meeting. So that's what I'm suggesting, that in October, Bob have a very specific agenda item to brief us on the condition of the golf course, what the status is, what the planned activities are, what Casper's feedback is, and so forth, and then we could react to that. Bill, you had the floor, and I sort of
That's exactly my point. You've covered my point. My point is, if we want something to appear before the boards like this, I don't think we should do it individually. That should be a decision made by the board.
Right.
Well, a simple solution to that, and I agree with Dave, is that when we have the agenda meeting for the November meeting, that on the agenda we make a request that Casper come over and brief us on some of the things and activities they're doing in coordination with what Bob wants to do.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll take it under advisement at this point as to the dates. The dates may have to be before November. I'm hearing we want an update on what's going on.
We want an update. We want to know what's going on.
And that certainly
Yeah.
makes
What the
sense to
assessments
me.
are, what the feedback is,
And
what the plan is.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan, sorry.
I don't think the board wants to get involved in micromanaging Casper. I think that's why we pay this gentleman and the staff a rather healthy compensation package to do it for the board and report to the board when they have things in hand to report. So if you want to change that Casper in November to general manager reports on the golf situation, and if he wants to bring Casper in to discuss it, and I'm with you all the way.
I don't think it's unreasonable at all to request from our contractor a report on
No,
what's
I don't
going
think it's
on.
unreasonable to do that at all. I think, though, that in fact the contractor is working under the supervision of the general manager, and that falls within management of Ocean Pines.
Let me just cut. Go ahead. I think that we move forward with what I heard and what I'm hearing, and justifiably so. The board wants an update, not only what's going on with Casper, what's going on with the drainage, what's going on with the condition of the course. It's a perfectly legitimate request to receive. I believe the steps are to receive it from our general, in my view, to hear it from the general manager first. And if we don't get enough information in that review, then we have every right in the world to go to that contract and say, Bob, we want to have a meeting with. But I wouldn't jump to the Casper level.
I understand that.
Tom, precisely as I had stated earlier, however, I think we need to do it in October, as you suggested, not wait until November. I think we really need to hear in October what that report is from the GM, not wait until November.
All right, yeah.
Dave, you agree?
I don't mind hearing it. I want to know, we built a budget. We agreed to take a program that was going on successfully for something like 5 years, which was approved by multiple boards, and which had a long-term plan, sort of one of the few success stories of actually gaining continuity in Ocean Pines, and our general manager recommended that we suspend it.
Which the board approved.
The premise upon which he recommended that we suspend it is that Casper would examine have the time and their expertise to examine the golf course and the drainage program, and to make recommendations as to what that would be, how we should go forward. That's what we stopped that, okay, and we all agreed, and myself included, that made sense. We all of a sudden have a body of expertise that we didn't have to tap before. Okay, now, okay, one of the things, it is time for that briefing to come, and not through the general manager. Now, Bob, you can put together a preliminary report, you can talk to Casper if you want, you're monitoring Casper's operational activity, but I want to know from the experts, I want to be able to question the experts as to what their plan is for that drainage program. And I have some confidence, by the way, that they will have this plan. That's who I want to hear. Now, if that, I think, is probably more appropriate for a special meeting than it is for and there should be an open special meeting so that all the people interested can come in and hear it.
I will take this discussion under advisement, and we'll discuss it if folks decide what to do. I'm hearing a lot of things. I don't want to make a decision on the fly, frankly, on what to do with this. Unless there's something substantive really to add, I'm going to move on.
The only substantive thing I want to say is that Dave and I are in agreement.
Mark that down. Mark that down on the calendar. Okay, moving on to public comment.
Yeah. This is kind of
name and address.
My name is Tim Cryer, K-R-I-E-R. I live at 4 Dawn Isle, Ocean Pines, 21811. And I wanted to come up and talk about the golf course today. I'm an old retired guy, and I mow greens and do other things at the golf course this year. This is my first year there. The last 6 years I've been down at Ocean City, golfing yacht ever since I retired. Enjoy it thoroughly. Read a lot of articles about the golf course recently. Everybody seems to be an authority.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to have an opinion, good or bad. I want to stress right off the bat, I'm not an authority. I go up and I mow greens, and the greens are, as everybody knows. We have severe problems with the golf course. Just an observation, this course was built, I believe, 41 years ago. 41 years ago, them trees were so high. Now they've grown for 40 years and they're this high. You got so many places on this golf course that cannot get sun. Without sun, it's damn tough to grow grass. It really is. You've got fairways out there. I'll use number 18, number 9. They're like bathtubs. I mean, hell, when it rains, where's the water going to go? And then you get 106-degree temperature, and boy, she boils just like you got a pot on the stove, and that cooks the hell out of everything. I think we got some severe problems there that I really think you need to close the place down, which is a drastic move. But I think we got to move a bunch of trees that got to be cut down out of there. And how in the hell are you going to do it if you don't shut the place down? And I would think that wood's got to be worth some money. Hardwood's got to be worth some money to some lumber companies. The other stuff has got to be worth some money to some paper companies. And I don't know I had no idea about cost. But I would think that would defray some of the costs. And I know that would have to go to referendum, and people, it'd be tough to vote. I don't golf. I haven't golfed for 9 years. I got a bad back. But I would vote for it because that golf course makes your house, and my house worth more money. I mean, it's an amenity it's a serious amenity. And I think that if you went to referendum and you stressed the importance to the overall community, to the value of property, I think it would have a better chance to pass. But I really think you got to shut it down and take a real drastic rebuild. Those greens are 41 years old. Christ, with all the stuff that's on them and that, they no longer drain properly. I mean, the gravel that's way down under and the sand that's gone. I think we got a severe problem. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
I've got one clarification. Are you an employee
Yeah.
or volunteer?
No, hell no.
You're an employee?
Paid.
That's all I know. That's all I know.
Big bucks, man. $9 an hour.
Plus benefits.
I'm a boat swing 12-floor guy, and maybe I'm over 5 minutes. Fellas, you know,
I'll give my watch out.
I'm a little bit disappointed.
What's your name again and address? Name and address
Yes, I
again?
said it. Full of old swing 12.
Okay, all right.
I was a little bit disappointed in last year's boards. The people wanted to cut the dues down. Some board members don't went along with it. And we got over $4 million in the reserve. Why did we have to put more the next 2 years, another $50 in that reserve, in the debt reserve? If you remember how many people got foreclosure, people lost their job, cannot pay the dues. I can tell you something, my personal. I've been 21 years retired. I get less now than 21 years ago, but my expenses goes up. And I cannot go along with the yacht club and the golf course. I've been 19 years here. Every year we lose money. We keep put money in it. You gentlemen say, well, the golf course brings us money to the house. Try to sell your house, sir. Try to sell your house. You see where your money goes. There is we have to change the thing here. I talk a lot to Bob. He's a very good manager. If I got something on my heart, I go to Bob. He listens to me. I was surprised in the last general meeting, Normally, still 20 people speak up. Is it not true? Mm-hmm. This year, only one. But this lady and the other lady, when they came with the list from the voting, Mr. Sistursky had the most vote. People told me, don't vote for Sistursky. I went out. I got you 200 votes, fellow. Why? He wrote the right stories. The people in Ocean Pines are fed up what you people doing. You 7 people here can make a decision for $1.6 million. That is a lot of money towards people. That has to be voted on. This man came up to cut that 20. I've been asking that for years. Pete, I had an argument with Pete about that. You cannot go and spend all the money without asking the people in Ocean Pine. We heard him. I heard him. I can feel it. The only reason I live, I got a capital. I have to live off my capital. My pension is not bringing me enough income. And that pension of that capital went from a potato to a damn peanut. You all know it. I was last week in the bank. I had to change a bond. And they gave me 5% or 0.5% interest. I told them, I said, you want me to pay you 0.5% money so you can stay open? We're losing money, and you people keep wrapping the money on. This man is right. We have to change Ocean Pine. The dudes, the yacht club and the golf course, never walk it. Never. The first thing they wanted to rebuild was the pillars. Then they want to cut the whole thing down. No, then they say, no, that is okay. There is nobody in the 20 years that they have argument about the yacht club. There was never a board member when he was on the board and said to the board, enough is enough with the yacht club. I tell you, the yacht club is not going to work. Sorry for you, Bob. You do a lot of work. The yacht club is not going to work. You can change it. You can put gold in the inside. The people are not coming. The only people who come is the tourists. That's the only people who come to the yacht club. You talk to the people around. Well, I'm not going to the yacht club to eat. I'm not going to the coffee house. And we keep putting money. What this man say, if the golf course has to be rebuilt, like this gentleman say, go to the bank and loan $1 million and get a 30-year loan so that the people 30 years from today pay on it. I cannot see that I pay every year $50 more and the people 30 years from now, then I have to pay nothing. This has to stop. We're hurting in this country. Everybody is cutting back except Ocean Pine. And I didn't know what to say more. It's like I say, I don't want to see any dues increase for that $50 the next 2 years. That had to get off the table. I don't care what everybody say about me. We cannot afford it. We go behind people or close the house. They cannot even pay the dues. They got no job. I don't know what to say to you, but this man got the right idea. Thank you, and I want to say something. Him, and you, I have helped you all on the election too. It's not that I'm here standing and lying. I helped a lot of people with the election. Bob too. And I had a lot of votes for that man. The people told me he got the right idea. Think about it, what he says. Thank you for your 5 minutes.
Thanks.
Thank you, John.
Good morning. I'm Randy Romblatt. I live at 6 Surfers Way. You have to pardon me this morning. It's unlike my nature, but I'm a tad on the nervous side. I'm speaking on behalf of a group of members that attend the yacht club on a regular basis. John and M. Hench, Bob and Kathy Brennan, Mike Stevens, just to name a few. There's a large group at the yacht club that still have concerns about moving the fence at the pool. Although I'm speaking today, the words are and questions are from the group. They still have concerns, like I said. I went back to the original minutes of the April meeting where the fence was brought up and I couldn't find anything. I got some help from public relations. marketing department. It's actually in the video. So I went back and looked at the April video. I looked at the general manager's town meeting video, and I looked at the July video to make sure that I had what I have to say is correct, facts. During the GM's April meeting, while he was talking about the yacht club, he mentioned moving the fence at the yacht club pool. There was some general discussion from the board members, and some of that discussion focused about the need to have a lifeguard on duty if the fence was removed and the added expense for that. The GM's answer to that, to cover that expense, was if he could sell 2 drinks or 2 more dinners an hour, he could cover that cost. The president, Tom Terry, asked what were the downsides to moving the fence. The general manager's answer, in essence, was there were none. As that discussion ended, no member of the board asked what it was going to cost to move this fence, and the general manager did not offer any idea of what it was going to cost. There was some speculation at some point that there was actually a motion by the board to approve this. There was no motion. The action just moved forward. I then watched, like I said, the general manager's town hall meeting. There was a large contingent from the yacht club at the meeting. When the general manager opened it up for questions, the first questions came from that group of people. The first question was, how is the general manager going to monitor the revenue to see if the yacht club was actually receiving an increase in revenue after the fence was moved? The answer was 2 drinks would cover the cost of the expenses. There was a question about children being asked not allowed on the pool deck. The general manager said they would not be allowed. Another question was asked is why should a person pay a membership when they'd be allowed on the pool deck for free? The answer was they would not be allowed in the water. The general manager never made a statement as to what it was going to cost, again, for the project. At that point, the general manager asked the group from the pool if they would defer their questions now so he could move on to other items. That was agreed. They went on to other items, and when he met with the people from the pool, after the meeting closed, there was no video, so I can't testify or make any comment about what transpired then. That takes us to the July board meeting. Directors Stevens and McLaughlin asked questions to the general manager about children on the pool deck. He answered that no one under 21 would be allowed on the pool deck. At this point, the general manager advised the board that he was putting off removing the fence until after the yacht club closed because of the need to install lights. Installing the lights required a crane and would cause the pool to be closed for a day while this work took place. He did not want to do that at this time. Keeping the pool open during August was more important, and I agree with that. Once again, no board member asked, and the GM did not offer a cost estimate to complete this project. Now, the questions and concerns about the board. Those are the facts of how we got to where we are today. The questions. Should this project be moving forward at this time when the future of the yacht club is still in doubt? Is the facility going to be torn down or renovated? Is the pool deck going to be replaced? Question 2. How much is this project going to cost, including the lighting? 3. What are the project's operating expenses, including lifeguards, electricity for lighting, and maintenance of the lights? 4. How does the general manager plan to measure the increase in revenue needed to cover the capital and operating costs other than saying 2 drinks will cover the cost? Question 5. How do these lights turned on from dark until some late hour of the evening affect the residents of Osprey Point and Marina Village? Question 6. Should Ocean Pines be spending unbudgeted capital funds on this project? 7. Should OPA be adding increased operating expenses to amenities which are already operating in the red? Then I was asked two other questions, if I could please bring them up. This was just off the cuff a week ago at the pool. We would like to let me back up. The group would like to offer an alternative or compromise, if you wish. The attached sketch, and I've turned to the last page. All my comments are in writing with this packet, and here's a sketch of what's at the yacht club.
Thank you.
Everybody got one?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, okay. Now we go.
The attached sketch shows the existing fence in black and the new configuration in red. The red dotted lines show the new configuration. By moving these two sections, 14 by 24 area is gained or added to the pool bar area. The additional 336 square feet allows for more tables or moving the bar to that corner. The additional tables could free up space around the bar. This simple alternative, which could be accomplished by Public Works employees, eliminates all the questions and costs up above. Now, I'm sorry, I need to go back to where the two other things that the people asked were on the last page. I was asked to add two other points. Some of the members of the pool never get in the water. They want to know why they should buy a membership if they never get in the water. If they don't join, that's additional loss in revenues. The last point is, current Red Cross regulations require the pool to be deck closed and all patients and cleared of all patients when thunder and lightning are in the area. The pool must remain closed until there is no thunder for 30 minutes. In July and August, the pool deck has been cleared approximately 6 times. At the present time, this does not apply to the pool bar. Removing the fence would require all patients eating at the tables or having drinks at the bar to pay their check and clear the area. How does the yacht club make up for this revenue? That ends my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Really, truly.
I'm Les Purcell, 55 Tail of the Fox. I was just reminded during other people's speeches here a little bit. When there was some talk about the Veterans Memorial, I just want to remind, I don't know, maybe Bob remembers this. Last Memorial Day, doing that service down there, which is so popular and it's so nice in the county, a woman who is a total stranger to me asked me, and I passed it on to Bob at the time, that it'd be nice if that entire lake the name was changed from just South Lake or whatever it is, No Name Lake, to something like the Veterans Memorial Lake. Everybody for a couple of weeks thought that was a really good idea, and then I never heard it again. So I just thought I'd throw that out and see if the board has any thoughts on that. Go with it or not, it's up to you. You talked a little bit about a Casper briefing. I think it would be a really good idea if you let Casper come in and talk to you. Like this gentleman said, everybody's an expert on this. And I don't know where Casper really wants to go with it. It depends on what questions you ask them. But last March, the first or second day that the new superintendent walked in here, he had a whole handful of problems that he had uncovered instantly before Casper ever got here. The biggest one of which is a super shallow root system on all of our grass. Yeah, listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. It'd be important. You should all listen to them. Dutch made a comment about mortgaging the future. Let the people 30 years from now pay for it. That'd be a good idea, except that those people are you, because these facilities are 40 years old and need work now, and you'll be paying on that mortgage in the next few years.
if you go that route. Just thought I'd just throw that out. The last thing is that I plan on being here and keeping you guys straight. Thank you. Be forewarned.
Anybody else?
Can I just add one more quick comment, and then I'll shut up and get the hell out of here? Hey, I said I'm not an expert, and I'm not. Tom List, who was superintendent down at Ocean City Golf for a long time, Tom is my next-door neighbor, and I worked for him for 6 years down there. And he comes up, I talked him into it, he comes up and mows grass with us now up there. And I seen Rusty McClendon's name mentioned a couple times in the paper and this and that. And for what it's worth, Tom and I talk all the time, have a beer together and this and that. And he said that as far as he's concerned, and I think he knows a little bit, he did that for 35, 40 years. He said, this guy is sharp, he knows what he's doing, and what he's doing, I mean, Tom said, everything he's doing, I would be doing, just for whatever it's worth.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Old business. Ray, I believe you, let me preface the discussion on the fire department. Just so folks are aware, we've had a series of meetings and discussions over the last year and a half, back and forth. Just a 30-second lead-in. We have established that the existing contract between the two organizations will stay in place. We are not vacating the existing contract. It stays whole. This is a proposed memorandum of understanding, which allows for an understanding that all revenues and all expenses are counted in the budgetary request, and there's a budgetary formula that's been agreed to. There is the inclusion of emergency services into the language through the memo of understanding. Both organizations thought it was very important that we maintain the history of the existing contract, both for the relationship and the use of the land, which clarified that. Been a lot of work done on this. Again, an iterative process of multiple presentations of various levels of detail. But at this point, Ray, I will turn it over to you.
Well, you said everything I was going to say, with the exception it's also been reviewed by council, their council and our council, and everything has been approved. So based on that, I'll simply make the motion. Based on the study, negotiations, and agreements that have been presented to both OPA Board and the Ocean Pines Volunteer Fire Department Board, and with review of legal counsel, I make the motion that OPA agree and accept the current Memorandum of Understanding and contract for fire protection and EMS services for the 2011-2012 agreed upon by both parties.
I'll second the motion.
A quick clarification. The last sentence there, for EMS services for the 2011 and 2012, does that mean fiscal year? What does that mean?
Yeah, I was, is this...
We're restricting this to just 1 year?
No. I don't
understand.
Actually, I would like to amend that, if I may.
It's your motion.
Okay. I'd like to amend that to simply take out the years.
Right. So
Okay.
EMS services as agreed upon by both parties,
agreed upon
correct?
by both parties, yeah, because
Thank
I'd
you.
like this to be a permanent.
Right, exactly.
Sure, right.
Whoa. Okay, so
Okay, motion as
you've amended the
All
motion.
right with you?
I'll second your
Amended motion?
Yes.
Okay.
discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I see this has been revised, and I think it's a far big improvement over the last draft that we reviewed. However, there was one issue, looking at 2B, with the emergency medical services and emergency services. Basically, it says, either party can opt out of doing that just by providing 6 months' notice. That's the addition. The question that I had it earlier, and it's still not resolved, at least as far as I can tell, it goes back to, I think, number 3, which follows this. Well, looking for the part where it says, sorry, I should have this. Basically, it's if the fire department is dissolved, all of the equipment in the fire department, what do you have with that? Yeah, here it is. Under 4, under the provisions of Section 14 of the agreement, this is in the agreement,
Right.
and to be of this agreement, in the event of dissolution of the department, shall distribute all its assets to the association. The parties agree that the monetary reserve associated with the replacement of equipment and facilities, that shall go. That was, yeah. Okay, so the fire department's dissolved, we get all the stuff, and then presumably we get another fire department, that's why it's there. Right. Okay. I asked the question the last time, and I don't see it answered, is, well, if we agree by mutual agreement that we're not providing EMS services, who gets the EMS equipment?
That would be us, because that would be dissolving the EMS.
Now, the agreement says dissolving the fire department. It doesn't say by mutual consent anything about who gets the equipment. The same point I brought up the last time. Who gets the equipment, the EMS equipment, if by mutual agreement? And I think somebody said, good catch, Dave, during that day.
I think that might have been me.
It might have been you.
It really doesn't say the fire department. It says dissolution of the department. Now, does the department include...
Department defined as being the organization.
The whole organization.
Yeah, on page 1, department's a defined term.
Right.
It's a defined term, so it means everything's gone.
It does, yeah.
But what we're talking about, Bill, though, is the case where we decide that EMS be provided by somebody else, or they decide they don't want to do it anymore, or any number of things could transpire there.
Right.
And we have the question, that's not dissolving the department. The question is, what happens to the EMS equipment?
Dave, if you were to, pardon me, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
If I may
there
make
is a simple fix. And
I'm about to suggest a fix here.
I'm just raising my hand. I'm trying to go by the rules.
I apologize. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, I think I was the one who said good catch, and I think that is right. And we want this thing to be, how shall I say it, as good an agreement as we can get and have all the legalese.
Perfect.
Right. So I agree with Dave, and I think there probably is an easy fix to this, Tom. But the intent being that should they abandon those EMS services, since we will have in effect paid for that equipment, then it needs to come to us under those set of circumstances, which is other than dissolution of the department. So I think we can easily fix that. I agree with Dave.
Yeah,
I think that protects us so that we get that equipment should we decide not to do it. So you may have a fix already.
I would recommend that we consider simply modifying the first sentence of paragraph 4 to read, under the provisions of section 14 of the agreement and/or section 2B of this agreement, in the event of dissolution of the department or any portion thereof, it shall distribute all its assets to the association. That almost gets it. It's the associated assets.
There you go.
That gets it.
That would do it.
Okay, what is that wording again?
Okay, the wording again would be, under the provisions of Section 14 of the agreement and/or Section 2B of this agreement, in the event of dissolution of the department or any portion thereof, it shall distribute all associated assets to the association. I don't know if is associated a good word?
No. I'm with you, and I think we're almost there. It shall distribute those assets pertaining to... No. It shall distribute the assets to the association.
I like just the appropriate assets.
Not appropriate. It can't be appropriate. Associated with, what's appropriate.
Right. That's why not.
What was your, any portion thereof? Let's use the word portion since we used it earlier, right? It shall distribute the assets related to that portion, okay? Consistently used portion, right?
Mm-hmm.
It shall distribute the assets, right? Okay.
Yeah, well, it shall
That
distribute all
portion
the assets to that portion.
associated with that, associated with,
Related
ready to, associated with, you pick it.
Oh, it's just associated with that portion, to the association.
Before we go any further down the, I'll get to you in a minute, right? Bob, you and I have been meeting with these guys for a long time. Are we heading over a cliff, or we're good? I think we're good. I think we're good. I don't think there should be a issue.
No, and the reason it could be moot too, because the part of the income from the fire department that they look at as a general picture of the whole is the income they're getting from their insurance refunds when they make the runs, when they bill insurance companies. They put that money in the general fund. So they may not be separating EMS from fire services.
Yes, they are.
As far in terms.
Ray, in their audited,
They are now?
no.
Or they
In their
already
audited
separate?
financial statements, they have two separate and distinct columns: fire department, EMS.
Okay.
And then they total.
All right.
They're clearly
If that's the case,
separated,
then
both
you're-
as to
then-
revenue and as to expense.
That's the case, then all related
Now,
assets.
having said that, the assets are not similarly allocated on the balance sheet, but the revenue and expenses are clearly differentiated between. They view them separate and distinct.
Then his
So the
proposal would
appropriate,
be
yeah,
approved.
I think we've got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe Tom, I'm sorry.
Maybe we
Send that back.
reread this as changed.
Send the one page out.
Number 4, under the provisions of Section 14 of the agreement and/or Section 2B of this agreement, in the event of dissolution of the department or any portion thereof, it shall distribute all the assets associated with said portion to the association.
Any other discussion? I will call the question on the documents as adjusted by us. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you for that good pitch the second time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Missed that one. Good. All right. Next thing on the agenda is all of you has received this. I will pass it out again in your mailboxes. I do not have the software to have cleaned up where the language is effectively.
Oops, I didn't-
might have been able to-
Didn't keep one.
We have in front of you here a proposal. I'm the liaison to the Budget and Finance Committee. Therefore, I'm bringing this forth from the Budget and Finance Committee that this timeline and approach be received by the board for us to review it. I know you've had this document for quite a while. It's been in your mailbox a long time ago. I personally put it there, so I know it was there.
On August 22nd?
Yeah, well, that's a long time comparatively.
Relatively.
For me, that's a long time, okay? I believe this presents some minor changes from last year's approach, but some changes such as the budget books, as they say, are developable in the December timeframe as opposed to January. There are some recommendations from the Budget and Finance Committee to us before we provide guidance to the general manager for his work. Again, you've had this for a while. I know that we need to formally put together the plan for how we move forward in the budget process for next year, for this coming year. It was talked about earlier today. With that, I'll open it for discussion, comments, questions. Pete?
Yeah, Tom, first of all, I apologize. I didn't get this until just a day or so ago. As most of you know, I've been away for about 3 weeks and did not have this with me as I traveled, and so I just got to it the other
I
day.
didn't drive to Nova Scotia.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But anyway, I do have three. I think this is good. I think there's only a minor change from what has been done in the past, but I do have some specific changes that I think ought to be incorporated into it. One of them you've already penciled in on your version of it. In item number 2, it should simply be this is your note. This is BFC to OP board. Exactly. OP board, and I think I would just delete BFC in that slash. So OP board guidance to the GM preparing, fine. So I would suggest, as Tom has already caught number 2, not caught, but noted, that it ought to be not board BFC guidance, but board guidance. In number 5, this is important, I think. It currently reads BFC additional recommendations and guidance to GM based on above review by January 12th. Well, at this point, I think the BFC is an advisory to the board. The general manager is accountable to the board, not to the BFC. So I think that simply number 5 ought to simply say BFC recommendations to the board based on above review. The general manager would be in an awkward position if he's getting guidance from this group and guidance from that group, which is contradictory. He is accountable to the board. The committee itself is constituted to advise the board, so I would simply say with respect to number 5, and I would simply delete the word additional. It's BFC recommendations, and they're very good recommendations generally, but make it BFC recommendations to the board based on above review, period. And lastly, number 8, this is a very innocuous thing, but at the time of number 8, the OPA board review and guidance to GM based on review, we're no longer giving guidance on February 1st, guys.
No, we're voting.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're giving changes, okay? So I would strike the word, substitute the word changes for guidance in number 8. So it'd read OPA board review and changes to GM based on review. And that, frankly, is exactly how it works. When we get all of this said and done, we're in February, and we say, Mr. General Manager, we do not agree with that new bus service that you're going to, or whatever it is, or that new chef, or whatever the hell it is. So we're not giving guidance at that point. We're really saying, and Tom, you conducted it last year, and we really went down as an entire board, a whole list of things, and voted. This one's in or that one's out. So anyway, those are my specific 3 recommendations, changes to items number 2, 5, and 8. And also, that would need to change the language that tracks that in the upper portion, and I'll be happy to give this to you.
Dave?
I agree with Steve.
Thank you.
That's 2. There's also you also received an email I forwarded directly from the advisory committee with suggestions on business case. There was an outline that they forwarded. It was, I don't have copies of it here. It was all forwarded to you in your emails, again, weeks ago, in relation to this, having to do with, a suggested outline and that kind of thing. What I would like to propose at this point is that we, no, you can't have it yet.
My notes are in there.
I don't care. Bob, what I would like to do at this point is I want to I'd like to sit down with the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, yourself, myself, and Pete, just go through this with you, get your input on, and then at our next meeting, we'll get a proposal from you as to how you're proposing to build your budget and move forward with that. And, take these changes and these suggestions, and then have a session directly with the chair of that committee.
Tom, thank you. My question, I think you've just answered, but I want to make sure. In the development of this, do they sit down with the general manager or not, the committee?
Yes. No, this outline.
No.
What?
To date, they have not sat down with the general manager to go over this.
No.
Okay, but what you're proposing is exactly that.
Right.
Fine.
Yeah,
I'm cool with
this is
that. I'm
something
cool with
they
that.
did completely
Yeah, that's fine.
on their own,
That's fine.
assessing it.
But we need to link the
work
two and not
Yeah.
work at cross purposes here.
Dan.
I just want to agree with you that this is, in fact, the general manager's budget presented to the board for its approval, and therefore, I would very much like to hear the GM's reaction to this proposed timeline and everything else.
That's where I'm heading.
We're all in agreement.
Right.
Okay.
MO2, the Dave and Jim show.
I move we suspend the rules to allow Jim to...
Agreed.
Yes.
Jim, pull the chair up here. He's on.
Hey, Jim, you don't have to pull that one up. Why don't you just take this one?
Yeah. Get rid of him.
Just wanted to put you on the firing line.
Want me to make some comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, right ahead. Yeah, you do. Take over on it. Thank you.
The board should have a copy of M02 amenity resolution, amenity policy draft dated 9/9/2011. That's in the footer of each page of the draft. You should also have what I call a draft resolution history. That's that single page. It should have been with each copy of the resolution. The history page just gives you some history of what's going on, both with regard to how the M02 draft has been put together, as well as additional changes, in particular resulting from the special meeting of August 10th. As it indicates, there are several existing resolutions dealing with amenities, and back earlier this year, rather than simply write another resolution incorporating provisions from existing old administrative resolutions, we decided to roll everything into one single resolution dealing with the topic of amenities. And there's a brief description of how that's done. That's the end of my introductory comments.
Okay.
I can make one more comment, let's say. The bottom of your history page is a lengthy list of changes, rewording, that sort of thing. It came out of the special meeting August 10th. Some of you, of course, were not on the board at that particular time. Many of those are relatively minor changes. The change that perhaps is the most substantive is the one that's by B and C, dealing with the beach parking and the marinas. The rest of them, by and large, are, I don't want to say non-controversial. That's the first words that come to mind.
5, B, and C, right?
Yeah. If I may?
Sure.
Just in relation to that, we actually voted on that. There's 3-2 against. Pete and I were in real agreement again.
This could be a good year, Dave.
Yeah, it could be a whole good year, a new thing. Yeah, it's good. And at any rate, I'm, given that it was, we've already voted on it, and I'm satisfied with the change based upon the results of that voting. Okay, and I don't see any need to personally go into it again.
Yeah.
Well, this is officially being treated as our second reading, and let's do the revisions.
There was one other thing, I'm sorry, let me just, that was the most substantive thing I think we talked about, and we inserted some additional language, so I'm cool with that. And the other thing was allowing the GM the discretion to make decisions. We've taken care of that as well, right? The reservations, help me out here, which one of, what paragraph that was? 13 probably?
The GM shall have authority.
Yeah, that's it, 13G, right? 13G. Let me just read that one more time here.
Yeah.
Well, that's for the alteration of the uses, reservations. There's another one about the rates, changing in the rates.
That's what I'm thinking of, Jim, thank you. And that is a different paragraph, right?
9B.
9B?
Yeah,
Okay.
The second sentence was there originally and has been added back. It came out in discussions, or was going to come out maybe or varying words were added, but
However, management may adjust fees to attract new revenue and/or members as necessary during the budget year.
that's what you're.
Right, exactly. I'm fine with that.
Right?
Motion to accept the changes for the second reading. For
It's just
M2.
a second reading.
Which accepts it.
Yeah, okay. I'll second that motion. Now
Please do,
discussion,
Jim.
now discussion. Discussion.
As you would may note in the history, the resolutions referenced there will all be canceled as a result of this. And a new M02, which this is before you, will replace all of that, and that will end the 3-year forced march that we had on reviewing all resolutions.
And that deserves hearty congratulations,
Oh, yes.
if we pass it, Jim, if we
we have to
pass
pass
it.
it, right.
So I'll reserve until after we take action.
Other discussion?
I have several questions, if I can just take them straight through. First of all, when you make a motion to approve the second reading, I'm assuming that you're saying you're going to approve this policy.
Yes, that's exactly.
Thank you. Page 2, in the amenities lists, both A and B, our community garden is not included. There is, in fact, a fee for the community garden charged by the community garden group. It's not controlled by OPA in any way, shape, or form. Should it be, and should it be included in the amenities list?
This list, as I remember it, Jim, is basically a open for use. If you're referring to 5A, yeah,
5A and 5B.
5B is a fee-based,
Well, this one you pay a fee for.
so you'll see, okay.
But, I'm sorry, but as you pointed out, Dan, it's not owned by the association, the fee is not charged by the
The
association.
fee is charged by
It's a
the
separate
garden
group.
group. The point I'm trying to make is that the community gardens are an amenity of Ocean Pines.
Right.
They are accessible to the general public on a first-come, first-served basis. And whoever gets a plot within those gardens does pay a fee for the use of those gardens. It just does not pay it to OPA. It pays it to the group
Yeah.
who are running the gardens at this point in time. Now, I'm sorry to throw a clinker out at this stage in the game, but if you're going to list amenities, put them all on there. And decide how you're going to deal with the community gardens.
Well, I don't know that it's a clinker, because these fees are, in my
Association.
assumption, these are association
Yeah.
fees,
Okay?
not fees by anybody.
Right.
So I don't know that that's a clinker, but
The other
I'll
thing
look at
is
these two
that
guys.
given its status, I don't know that it's appropriate for the board to establish a policy that encompasses that. The policy, document.
I don't understand what you're saying by giving it status.
Well, it's basically not owned by the association. The fees are not paid to the association.
Oh,
It
with
is
all-
on-
with
it is
all-
on association land.
With all due respect, it is owned by the association. It's association property
It's
that the
association
association has agreed to allow people to use in a certain fashion.
Okay, so let's say not operated by the association.
As a matter of fact, I'll disagree with you there. The association supplies public utilities to that area, water and power.
Okay. Pete?
In the interest of a bigger picture, I'm in favor of just not including it in here. As I read again, the fee-based amenities, these are amenities which are available to all. Technically, it may be fine, but I think we can include it with great comfort. If we have to include it, we're going to have to change additional language here, because it says, for example, to the extent possible, fees will be set to provide association members and guests added value when compared to these amenities, blah, blah, blah. And we're talking about the major facilities, excluding the garden, I'm very comfortable with personally. If four of you want to include it in, but I'm very comfortable excluding it. I think that would be my choice.
And while Dan, pointed out correctly, of course, that there are aspects of the community gardens which are under association control. We own the property. There are things within this resolution that do not apply to, just as Pete just brought up. In other words, we're not regulating the fees, yet we have, numbers of statements in here about how we'll regulate, general statements about how we'll regulate the fees. So in each case, you'd have to put in except community garden. So.
My take on this would be that if we don't have a policy as it relates to community garden, we probably ought to get one. But I don't know if there's so much damage in not handling it here. I just, Bill.
Do we need to fix something that's not broken?
Well, Bill.
And I may be in error on this statement, but I believe that the monies that the folks who have a plot in that community garden pay is for the supplies that they have there. They buy in bulk mulch and stuff like that, and that's their contribution to that.
Yeah.
I believe. And I may be wrong, but I believe that.
I'm a member, and that's exactly
what
what
happens.
happens.
So it's kind of a cost-sharing arrangement of the people who own it.
Well, but in other words, the people who have community garden plots are not paying for the utilities and not paying for the fence and landscape that sets it off from the rest of OPA property. OPA is.
Yeah.
I'm just asking questions here, gentlemen, because I'm new to this
It's a
particular
good question, and you would be absolutely correct if fees were paid directly to OPA, which they are not. So the control from OPA, as far as the fees are concerned, I don't think would apply here, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, if we were to establish a policy for the community garden, if we were to establish a policy.
You're now the liaison.
All right.
What's your next question?
That's one question down. Okay, I just wanted that out on the floor for a second. On page 3, paragraph 7, marketing, and paragraph 8C, comprehensive annual plan, both require that the general manager present to the board by April a specific plan for marketing and et cetera. With all due respect, if you're going to market this stuff, folks, you're going to spend some money on it. So the dates are wrong. I think that this has to fit into the general budget, and all you need to do is change the date to when the general budget is going to be presented to the board, or it's just say instead of April, it's going to be in the general budget.
We had that discussion, just to clarify.
Did you? I wasn't here, so I don't know.
And that's why I'm just clarifying. We had that discussion, and it came down to, until the budget is approved, Bob really doesn't know what funding he has to work with. April is no later than April is the wording here, so that the assumption is that he gets his budget money approved and then puts the plan together February, March, and gets it to us no later than April. It's the reason we worded it no later.
The counter argument to that, if I may, was that we're approving his budget without knowing what he's going to do with it. That portion of it.
But the current market.
Well, that was.
You got both sides.
Exactly. That's
how do
why
I know what to
brought it
market
up.
until I know what you're going to improve? For example,
if I may, just for Dan's benefit, I mean, this has been going on a long time. I have to say, there were many things in here, as my blood splatter go, that I do not personally agree with, but
in the interest of compromise,
you know it. Bill.
Not having been a part of it, but using logic, reason, and common sense, I will assume that April was put in there because the fiscal year begins May 1st, so it has to be done by April.
Correct. The current operating market was approved last year anyhow.
And the whole focus is obviously the summertime activities, the yacht club, precisely so. Does that make sense?
As long as I still have the floor.
Yes, you do.
With a lot of bullet holes in it.
Oh, no. What page are you on?
Page 6 now. Last question, comment, or an attempt to understand. This is dedicated primarily to community advice and notification. But the first one is paragraph 13L to qualify as an Ocean Pines community organization, and it lists requirements for a roster. Just as a suggestion, and this goes to implementation of this policy after it's approved, the general manager might want to establish a form or a format in which this roster is developed so that whoever is looking at it only has to look at one form and can find data in the same fields. Item 14 deals with amenity rules for participant use and the publication of same. I'm going to assume again, and I just want to make this comment for the record, that posting these rules on our website on the internet is going to be part of the package. It's not explicitly mentioned in a rather explicit list.
Part of the implementation, that would make sense to me. Good. Okay.
I mean, to me, it's so noted in the record. That's all I wanted to
So
just
noted.
see it
No, that's
happen.
good.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay.
President.
Pete?
It has been brought to my attention that we do not have the marina slips listed on page 6. No, I beg your pardon. Which page is it? The 2. Yeah. Marina slips is indeed fee-based, is it not?
Yes, it is.
So why is that not included under B? Probably should be marina slips, pools.
Is that not part of the yacht club?
No, it's not.
No.
No, it's its own profit
It's a
center,
separate- okay.
separate and
Yeah,
distinct.
all right.
Separate and
I wouldn't
distinct.
consider just the
I think
word
it was an
marinas, or
oversight.
should be in marinas slips.
I think marina slips. Well, marina, I don't.
Just insert it.
You got
The point is,
Just insert it.
well, but we're talking about fee-based amenities, so
Insert it.
marina,
Insert it.
marina and slips. That way you've got it covered.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
It does come in later.
We'll list it there.
Yeah, I said marinas with an S.
All right, do I have a second on Ray's
Oral.
motion to approve this with the adjustment we just made?
Second.
Discussion anymore? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Jim, your marathon is over.
Getting closer, Jim, getting closer.
Way to go, Jim.
Package
It's not over, not over the next
Yeah,
day.
that's right.
Now, of all of the, how many of them are there, Jim, that we approved, rewrote? 20?
Well, the original number we started with was something in the 50s, years ago, 57, 58, something.
Yeah. And so now, based upon the basic resolution, they're going through them again. In other words, they're subject
Cycling
to a
through.
2-year
Yeah,
review.
yeah.
And that's happened.
Jim, how many committee members do you have now?
4.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Makes the Boston Marathon look like a sprint.
Yeah.
There was a time when he had one, Dan.
No, let's just go get it on the record here that the Board of Directors clearly thanks Jim and the committee for all your work in working on this, and Dave as a board member for leading and following and keeping this thing going as well. So, hey, congratulations.
If you're going to throw them in, and Bill Rako
And Bill
for
for starting the whole
No,
thing.
absolutely.
starting the whole thing.
Part of the Rayco legacy. Paperwork.
And for the person who made the paper that we have kept. Okay, moving on. Discussion of Board of Directors objectives. You have received this from, it's in your board packet. There are 12 things listed here. It is not my intent at this point, if possible, to not debate these issues. It's just whether or not they should or should not be on the objectives list at all. I don't want to end up debating the resulting conclusion on some of this stuff. I just want to decide whether it's in or out.
Okay, I got it.
You got it?
But
Okay.
let me understand it. These are the board objectives, meaning the board priorities in essence.
That is correct.
For this coming year. That these are the most important things that we collectively as a board,
This is what I received.
by majority vote, are setting forth as not I may have some particular interest in bringing something forward later on, and I'm always able to do that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But what we're asking the board here to do is to approve the board objectives for the year.
Correct.
Are we
Okay.
asking the board to do that?
I think that's what, well, help me if we're not.
I didn't understand that was to happen.
Well, I mean,
Well, that's what I want to get, what are the rules?
I believe that these objectives require serious discussion, and actually, it would be perfectly appropriate to have that done in a special meeting.
Board
If
objectives?
we're going to take them seriously, I mean,
well, let me make sure I understand.
Well, yeah, let's get the grant, yeah.
Yeah, let's make sure the rhetoric doesn't
Yeah,
get past
right,
the
right,
facts here.
okay, okay.
The reality is, this list was created by reaching out to all the board members. I got feedback from some, none from some. In some cases, I truncated the wording into an objective as best I could, and listed all 12 of these items.
clearly, in my mind, these are issues that certain board members believe ought to be part of the objectives
Right.
for our board going forward. There's no question, each one of these, 1 through 12, will require individual assessment. The question that I'm putting on the table here, at this point, and it may take a special session, which we can do, is just, it was my intent today to either accept this list or we can have a special session where we debate it, which is fine with me, considering the time where we are right now. I have no objection to doing a special session on this topic.
Except for the construction of a new airport, I think you've covered everything.
Just for the public's knowledge, I don't think that's number 13.
Just in response to Dave's comment, too, when we built this agenda, this was a discussion and not a motion to approve.
That's what I thought.
Right.
You know, that's why it's on your agenda in that way. So, you know, for example, you might join me in disagreeing with number 9 because we're stepping on the general manager's toes and micromanaging something. That's not a board objective, kick it off. That would be appropriate for the kind of discussion you're looking
Special
for.
session. Right.
However, what would not be appropriate is a debate of items 1 and 2, which I certainly want to have. So I would very much vote for a special session to discuss those.
No, I think.
I think there's general agreement that we will establish a special session to go through this list.
Okay.
I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Yeah.
why don't we set that?
And you're right, we were not asking for approval. Okay, but however, that's different than the last 2 years.
Yes, it is.
Last year you were chair and the year before Bill Rankin was chair. What we did was, at this comparable meeting, we simply similarly had input from directors and some had input, and we debated, and we added some and we deleted some based on a meeting very similar to this without having to have a special meeting. And I'm not saying what we've done in the past is what we ought to do in the future, but I'm just suggesting that we have been able to successfully do this without a lot of rancor in the last 2 years.
Right.
And if we need a special meeting, that's fine with me. I think some of them should not be included on the list of the board approved, but let's have a special meeting, debate it, and we'll end up with what we all agree, or the majority agree, should be the priorities for the year, right?
All right, I'm looking at Thursday.
2 days from now? Or
2 days from now.
as long as it doesn't interfere with Dave's golf.
Oh, I'm going to put it square in the middle of the 4th hole. We can do 4 o'clock. I know you guys.
But Thursday would be fine. And I think we should get along with it.
I've got to work on work schedule.
What time on Thursday?
I'm saying 4, but if that conflicts, we can back it up.
Yeah, I can't be there.
Okay, well then,
Is Friday
have
off
to
the
be-
table?
Friday morning early, like 8:30.
That's fine. Yeah.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Is that all right with you? Yeah. Okay.
We just voted what Dave's schedule's going to be. Okay, 8:30.
He can make it.
I can tell you he'd prefer Friday than Thursday.
That's fine. All right, Friday,
I have a meeting
8:30,
Thursday afternoon too, so.
and
Ocean Pines already.
we will discuss this at that point.
Good.
What time Friday,
8:30 here in the boardroom, right?
That makes sense.
Okay, the next
Yes.
discussion is and basically, I'm just going to hand this out because you've got it in email.
We need to bring
Is
this
an
with us.
approach that one of the things I noticed over the last year and even beyond, going back even further, is we as a board have, we've got advisory committees. We're basically leaving it up to them to decide what they're going to work on. And at the rough, high level, the concept here is for each liaison member of our board to work with each of their committees partially in concert with writing the annual reports, is to have the committee put forward those things which they think they'd like to work on, and the liaison to work with that board and the president and others on the board to establish what we would like them to work on, so that no later than the November meeting of this board, we will receive from the liaison for that advisory committee a proposed work plan, if you will. I call it a charging document, which basically we would say to that advisory committee, okay, and this creates an ongoing process where, as they're doing their annual write-ups, in the October timeframe, they start thinking about the next year. The new board has had a couple months to meet. They can then establish the things they'd like to have the advisory committees working on so that we have some direction as to what it is we'd like them to be doing, and they have some input from us as to what it is they've suggested they do that does not stop a volunteer organization from working on things that they're passionate about, but it just gives us a chance to give some direction. And that's the concept behind this. Bill?
So I understand this. With this document, you want us to get information from the committees that we are the liaison to.
Correct.
We're not telling them at this time what we want them to work on.
No, well, I mean, it would be, it's a discussion between the liaison.
Okay, so I understand what we're saying.
And no, you as an individual board member cannot tell that advisory group on your own what it is they ought to be doing. You would be coming back to the board with a proposal, some of which is their idea, and yours for the board for us.
Just a polite point of order, Mr. President. You've changed the agenda a bit. You were going to discuss the annual schedule first and then the charging documents, so we just rotated.
Thank you. Okay, I'll come back to it.
Just want to remind you.
Just remind me. I didn't. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this really is just a discussion point for everybody. Unless there's objections, that's what everybody's going to be doing.
Charging document. I have some quotes on it, if I may. First of all, it's not necessary, is it? I mean, we're not creating something wherein it's necessary for the board to think about what we want each committee to do and to do it. I mean, it may be that there are things that we want a committee to do. Correct. Might be one committee or not, and there may be things that we don't particularly want, or we're not, actually phrasing that the wrong way, but that we don't have any specific things for committees to do. Maybe the things committees have their own. I guess one of the things that I'm concerned about is that the committee any given committee not be overwhelmed's not a bad word either, by charges from the board. In my mind, one of the main functions of a committee is to serve as a place where the community itself, who are interested in that particular area, can come in and make their suggestions and recommendation, and the committee's feedback to us should include, what those people, what the sense of the community is about that particular area. I look at committees as being our window onto the larger community, because we're not that accessible to everybody, at least not.
That's why I just said that we're not limiting what they do. We're simply adding some direction as to what we want them to do. And the idea here is to, again, is it absolutely required? Well, not in the bylaws anywhere, no. But in general management, if I've got a committee that I'm working with, and I'm a board of directors, it just seemed to me that we ought to provide some guidance of what we'd like them to do.
And I'm worried about unintended results. I mean, we don't want to make this the priority thing, whereas, because we're the board, and limit that other, we should be encouraging people to attend committee meetings and saying what they think in there.
No argument. Bill, and then you were.
Also, with regard to this, when we have advisory committees, which advisory is a synonym for recommending or whatever, I think we need to really focus on or emphasize that those committees deserve the courtesy of us responding to.
Yes.
If it's nothing more than we're taking it under advisement, at least to acknowledge the fact that we have received it and we're looking at it.
Agreed. Well, that's part of this process will hopefully help that do that.
That's also part of what the liaison should do at the thing. But for example, with the MAC committee, there are ongoing things that they're involved in that I wouldn't change anything on, because it's data and information that Bob needs and recommendations and like, well, we're going to have to be working on. So, yeah, I agree.
Two things. Number one, let me just read you from the bylaws. Under Article 10, committees and advisory bodies. The Board of Directors shall establish committees prescribed in the charter or bylaws, define the primary duties and determine their size. Okay. What I hear you, my interpretation of what we're trying to do here, which I think I agree with, if my understanding is correct, is to provide a mechanism to both allow either the board or the liaison to identify particular areas above and beyond the normal duties and responsibilities of the committee that they may want them to work on this coming year. As you said a moment ago, it ought not to be up to the liaison to say, hey, I want this committee to work on that.
Right.
So if that liaison has that objective, that liaison needs to come to the board to get, okay. Secondly, providing an opportunity for the committee to go the other way.
Correct.
And say, hey,
I'd like to work.
We'd like to work this coming year on this, but not have them go work on it if there's no interest in the board pursuing it. I mean, we don't want a lot of ways. We want some coordination and communication going both ways. Is that the essence of it?
No,
It's not for normal duties. I mean, we're not going to recreate the wheel and tell the Budget Finance Committee you ought to review monthly financial statements. They do that. That's part of the job.
The only thing I would say, Pete, that would be additive to that is that if a committee, and they are volunteers, still wants to work on something, even though we have said, well, we're not sure we're really that interested in that, they have every right to go ahead and do it. Yeah. They have every right to go ahead and do it and feed the input in whether we want to hear it or not.
If it's going to be in their charter.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. Right.
Yeah.
But if they spend 6 months and then come back and we say, thank you very much, and put it in the file drawer, they've done it, and they satisfied the fine.
Just to Dave's point at the opening of this discussion, a good example, I think, of something that I would direct if I were the liaison to, or sitting on the board, I would suggest to the liaison to direct the Comprehensive Plan Committee to liaise with the general manager's office in some form that's acceptable to the board, so that what's being planned in terms of long-term capital development is consistent with what the comprehensive plan for the community happens to be. There's a real good reason for doing that, or there's not a good reason for having the Comprehensive Plan Committee. That's part of what I'm hearing today is that we're looking at committees. The park has a great way to look at committees and runs in a very different way than Ocean Pines does, or used to. I don't know if it still does or not.
It does.
And that is that the committees were, in fact, the generators of the projects and the actions to be reviewed and approved by the board.
Precisely.
It came up from the bottom instead of down
this
from the top.
accounts for both.
Yeah.
And I like this because it does provide room for both to happen, because I see a committee as also an adjunct to the board where we don't have perhaps the personal time or the personal skills to get involved in an area that in fact somebody else can, and come back to us with reliable advice. So, not saying too much, Dave. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just suggesting that the definition might be a little broader than just a window to the public.
I'm just worried about unintended results, and I think committees are so important in that aspect of that bottom up.
Bill?
I may have misunderstood or misheard what Dan said, but I thought he said something about the committees giving a recommendation or something specifically the Comprehensive Plan Committee to the General Manager.
No. What's going on right now? Pardon me if I answer this, but right now we're planning.
Correct.
A long-range capital improvement. We're doing our job. The general manager's doing his job, which is to maintain the commonly held property of Ocean Pines. The Comprehensive Plan Committee is also, by definition, involved in that process.
That's correct.
You can't have the two groups going off away from each other. They need to be, as I said, they need to liaise on some basis, whether that's through the board liaison officer, working directly with the general manager, or whatever system works. Okay. I'm not suggesting that a committee start telling a general manager what to do. That's not their job.
Okay, what I heard was working through the general manager. Well, the fact that it's an advisory committee to the board of directors, if we work through there, and I know, and that's a good point what you're making, that specific committee, And I know there are plans for, on a regular basis, for the Comprehensive Plan Committee to give progress information on where the committee is to the Board of Directors. Okay.
Yeah, one other thing, there is, I'm sure you know, Dan, that our committees are formed with not only a board liaison, but a staff liaison.
Well, I'm very aware of that.
Right. Okay, but I just wanted to put that in front of folks for a discussion, so they would be aware of these actions. Unintended offshoots are something we'll have to watch for. We certainly do not want to cut off. Now, to go backwards on the agenda, because I missed it,
Right.
was the dates for our meetings, and I will draw your attention to a couple of things, one of which I'm going to propose to remove one of the dates here. I got it. Good. Thanks, Teresa. Thank you.
There's already some additions.
To draw your attention to the November meeting is November 15th, as opposed to trying to meet during Thanksgiving week. And the suggestion, and I agree with the suggestion, is that we as a board should not be establishing the date of the organization meeting for the next board. I think that's something that, Pete, I know that this was something you drew to my attention as well, and I agree with him that we should stop our annual schedule.
Right.
At the
That
annual
concludes
meeting,
our
and
year,
That's when our year actually ends.
So then just scratch through August 14th.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm
Yeah.
suggesting in discussion, that unless there's an objection, the normal meeting date in November will be a week earlier rather than Thanksgiving week. And that we remove the last date and the rest of the dates stand. Always, there's tentative dates with the county commissioner and volunteers things. These are always, where we're going to hold them, and those kind of things are fluid. Go ahead, Pete.
I've got two versions of this thing. They seem to be the same. One was just passed out,
Right.
but it corresponds to the version I had looked at, and November 15th is on both.
Correct. We just had extra copies made this morning, that's all. One was in your packet, one wasn't.
I'm looking for the changes from what I've marked up and reviewed, and the answer is they're identical. It's just extra copies. Thanks very much. Here, Dan, you can have that.
Which I'm just drawing your attention to the November
Well, you said
date
moved up,
change.
so, okay.
So short naps are wonderful. I know that.
No, it's the week after. We moved it out of the,
It's November 15th,
Not that
correct?
week, it's the following week.
Yeah.
That's the reason we moved it to the,
It alternates. One year it's fourth Thursday, and the next year,
usually a month before.
A point,
Yes,
Mr.
yeah.
President, has the board, I'm sorry, not do we, because we really haven't brought it up as an individual group, but has the board maintained a policy of having a board member attend the county commissioners' meetings?
Yes.
That's going to get interesting with Tuesdays here.
Yeah. They meet twice
I
a month.
had a meeting with Jimmy Bunning the other day, and he is going to be advising me of agendas that will be coming up. And if they include something that's going to affect Ocean Pines and the like, I'll know, and I will attend those meetings. It's only on occasion that there might be a conflict.
Well, I think
what's the normal time of their meetings?
They start at
10,
10. Yeah,
Yeah.
they start at 8:30 with a closed meeting, make all their decisions, and then come out in public and announce it.
Is it 10:30 in the morning?
10:30.
on Tuesdays.
That discussion,
Twice a month.
I've had that, the minute we announced our schedule, that was brought to my
That was brought up,
attention.
yeah.
I've had that discussion with a few people. Bottom line is, we will have an advance notice.
Yes.
We either have a board member there, or we'll ask Bob to dispatch a member of our staff to be there at that meeting if required. Plus, they don't meet just once a month, they meet twice a
They
month.
meet twice a month.
So,
We can be at half the
it
meetings.
can be at least half the meetings, and Ray, I'm assuming, because going forward this year, you'll be leading that up, and if you can't be there, you'll get somebody to replace you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My point with that, Mr. President, is very simple, and that's that it is for our information that we be there, but it is also extremely important that we be there from a public relations standpoint. Just to remind the county commissioners who would rather not still admit the fact that Ocean Pines exists, that we do.
We're here. Okay. So this is the calendar.
Okay.
And I will turn it over to Bill for the PAL list.
Okay, folks, you have that in front of you. Before we progress with what we have here, I draw everyone's attention to the bottom of the list. The bottom there explains how items will be placed on the list and how they will occur. Okay, getting to the list at the Board of Directors, we have some things. First of all, let me explain how I came by the list. Okay. Received some information from Dave on some things that he thought or should have been part of, looking through history, I guess, part of the pending actions list. Also received an information that John McLaughlin, the previous vice president, who was the person responsible for this list, that he had on his list. So I got those two information. Then I asked Pete Gumsack to review minutes from last meetings during the course of the year and things that he thought maybe should be included on there. Then Tom and I met and went through all the information and decided between us the things that we felt were germane at this time, and this is how the list was generated. Okay. The first item, I'll just go through these real quick with regard to board actions. There's only 6 of those there.
Bill, if I could suggest,
yes, sure.
I'd like to get just some agreement or lack thereof to the guidelines of what establishes what goes on and not. So if you could cover that to make sure we're...
Yeah. Well, basically, as it says, items that will be included on the list will be general manager initiatives placed before the Board of Directors, Board of Director directives given to the general manager, and Board of Director initiated tasks.
Things we're going to work on.
Things that we're going to work on, that we initiate.
That's your definition.
That's my definition. That's correct.
Pending.
And of course, the last thing down there, which is most important, if there is a conflict, a majority vote of the Board of Directors will decide if something should or should not be listed. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are we gonna
discussion on that? Or?
Yeah, discussion for sure. For sure. We've done these. We've done these for 3 years. Actually, the first year I was on the board, and Bill Rayco, by the way, was the person who initiated them. The board member who initiated them, and basically, it's a checklist. It's a don't let things drop down the cracks list. I don't know that we've ever had the need to vote on something, whether or not it should be on or off the list, and it's never come up. And so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Most people know what they are once they see them, but if they don't see them, they could forget them forever. The second thing is this, again, in the 3 years when this was working pretty good, the PAL list came out at least about a week, something like that, before the board met, so that people could remind each other, and basically send back into a common point, hey, you forgot this, hey, we said this, and that we were going to do this.
Let me respond to that.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize for that, but I guess it was a wrong assumption on mine. More than a week ago, I provided this to Dan, and he had it to be included on the agenda, and I was assuming that we were going to get that.
Bill, I know this is the first time. I'm just pointing out
explaining
how it worked before. Now this board may decide that wasn't.
No, you should have it ahead of time. I assume that everyone's going to.
But I believe it worked pretty well for 3 years, and I believe it was very useful. And just one third point, and I don't know that you have. Do you have past PALs? I mean, going back several years.
Do I personally have them? No. The only ones I have is what I shared with you just a few moments ago.
Just for ideas, I'll be happy to give you some. You can look. They're not all in exactly the same format or anything. But the one point I wanted to make is we had a third category of things. Basically, we had the the general manager, thank you. Yeah. Pending board actions, stuff that are on our list and we have to do. Pending GM staff actions, okay. And these are things that we use to double check the general manager's report each month. In other words, if they're on his list, we expected him to talk about things. And it worked out mostly like that.
Well, I believe if you look at this, there's board of directors, general manager.
And then the third thing, though, is that there are quite a few things that are, and it fits in with your other directives to the committee. If we should, for example, give a time-sensitive directive, time-sensitive could be 6 months, to a committee, we want to remember that we did that. And so that would be in the third category.
Which is what?
Well, here it's miscellaneous issues to track. And that's just one person's way of putting in that third category. So
we can do that.
We'll get you these things. You can look through them and figure out of the different ones.
The bill has seen some past.
Yeah, but not all.
But not all.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so.
Yeah, may I ask or interject here with the PAL list? Mr. Stevens points out it was created 3 years ago, and 4 years ago, and the comment was it was used to double check the GM's report, against what the GM was reporting. I would have to say, and I looked down the 8 items that are listed under general manager here, of which at least 7 of them I've already reported on. I'm not sure why. I consider this, from my perspective, and not being disrespectful, but a management tool in this particular case for the board to manage the GM. I believe that is one of the reasons it was created at the time. I'm not sure I need that level of management or that level of micromanagement, the term I use, for these items. If I look down the 8 items here, golf drainage assessment, we talked about today. It was something that it was approved on not having it in the budget this year. I was asked about road, how to apply casino money. We talked about road repaving. We obviously need to do some more work on that, but that is on my topic list. IRS issue. As things have changed, you guys have been brought up to date when I had to change. The reason I'm going through these, I don't need a pending action list to tell me how to do my job. That's what this appears to me, okay? And I know that was the inception of it. And quite frankly, okay, well, here's what I can tell you as serving on the board, as one that had to update the pending action list as the vice president on a regular basis, so I do know what I'm talking about. It was used as a tool to make sure the general manager was not missing items. Now, it can be debated, it can be argued. Quite frankly, you guys are going to make the final decision. But when I look at 7 of the 8 items here that I already have reported on in the last 2 months in my GM report without any guidance, and then I was asked a couple of questions today, as we are in every meeting, I make list of them and I get you the information. I'm not sure I need to have a third or another tool telling me how to do my job.
Well, if you don't, first of all, this isn't a tool to tell you how to do your job. It's not even anything remotely like that. It's a pending action list. It reminds the board of those things which are on your plate. And if we don't hear about them, of course, if we do hear about them, then there's no problem.
But respectfully, wouldn't that be your responsibility if it's missing to ask me about it? I mean, that's a board member's responsibility.
Exactly the way that was handled over the last couple of years. At the end of the meeting, we'd quickly go down the PAL list and check off if there's anything on there that we need to discuss that hadn't been brought up. We would discuss it.
But on the other hand,
I agree what you're talking about.
If there are things on the PAL list that you're interested in hearing, then we would like to let you know in advance so you can put them in your general manager's report.
Yeah.
I think the PAL list is a great agenda development tool for board meetings. I would have loved to have had this a little bit sooner than I got it, because it would have affected what was on here to a certain degree. But there's also, and I think Bob makes an excellent point here, and Dave, this goes to your earlier comment about unintended consequences. What goes on the PAL list becomes an interesting question. How far down is the board going to reach? How detailed are you going to start looking at things? What things are you going to look at? And I'll give you, my example that we didn't get into this morning, but was on our board objectives list, was the menu at the yacht club. Well, with all due respect, that's not a subject for board action.
No.
So,
by the way, that's never been on a panel.
No, I wouldn't argue that it has or hasn't, but it's a real interesting judgment area. It's a great tool from one perspective. It can't be held as a tool from another perspective. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm supporting Mr. Thompson's argument to a certain degree and asking the question, how do we use this so that it's an aid to the board in performing our function, but is not a club that gets swung at the general manager's head?
Well,
I'm being very specific about language.
I hardly see how a list of what the pending actions are for the general manager is a club. It's not even remotely.
That's not what
I can
it's
give
intended to
if
be.
you want, Dan,
And has never been, in my
give you
view.
3 years worth of pending
never has
action
been.
lists, email them to you, and you could tell me which one you thought were micromanagement. They weren't used that way, and moreover, but they were to stop things from dropping down the crack. And there are things on this list which I believe have dropped down the crack. We just talked about them yesterday with Tom and Bob. So, I believe the board, maybe it's a matter of keeping the board informed, but it keeps it out in front.
Let
me suggest this. Number one is, Bill, as you know, when I talked to you about this, it was my intent, and still is in my belief, that if there is a general manager's portion of this list, it is specific functions, projects that we have specifically asked him to do. What I would suggest is that, and this goes back to Dan's comment, having to do with agendas, and it may very well be what we ought to have is a president's list of issues that are still open, that can be used during the discussions for setting the agenda, so that instead of it being a general manager's list, it actually becomes the president's list, where I track things. And I do believe there is some value in that. But for the purposes of agenda setting and that kind of thing, I don't want to end up with every single thing that the general manager is doing, and I know that's not what you're saying, Dave, and no one is. But I'm also saying I want to err on the side of conservatism here, to where I'm feeling the need to create a president's list of open items, which I will monitor, or whoever sits in this chair monitors that, works with the secretary in creating the agenda, and so that we know what things need to be updated. And it's our job to manage what we do and staying on top of things. It's not the general manager's job to stay on top of us.
I agree 100% with what you're saying, Tom. I also agree that I think this general manager list is for PAL list, is a duplication of effort. I think it should be all part of the general manager's report. And I felt like that from get-go when I was doing this, so we do this. And if there are items, specific items as a board of director that we want to make sure that the general manager has part of his or her general manager's report, then obviously we have the freedom to do that and put it on the agenda, or inform the general manager ahead of time that we'd like for you to be prepared to deal with this. So.
All right, well, this list was up for discussion.
I haven't had a chance to discuss it.
All right.
I've had my hand up several times. I've been trying to follow the rules, and I've had my hand up, and I've been ignored. I've forgotten what I was going to say.
Good, move on.
No, in all seriousness. I have been observing this for 3 years, 2 on the board, and the year before that when I was not a board member. And I have found this to be, and I think the board has found it to be, a very useful tool. It's not a club, it's not micromanaging. And Bob, with all due respect, this is to hold us accountable to ourselves. This is sort of a reminder list for us as to what's important and what. So if you want to call it the president's list, that'd be fine with me. But as a board member, it hasn't been controversial. We haven't voted on things. We haven't used it as a club. We haven't micromanaged. It's simply a way for me as one board member to follow things. And I think it has been useful. I think its absence this past year, we survived the year. I mean, it proved that we didn't absolutely need it, but on the other hand, it would have been helpful to have. And so I don't view it, Bob, as our checking on you, but rather as a reminder to us as board members as to what the key things are that either we have responsibility for or we've asked, as I think Tom said, asked the general manager to do. Not the normal stuff, but just, anyway, I think we're just overreacting to this.
It's overreacting for you gentlemen because it's easy for you to say, I need to respond to anything on the list. I mean, that's my job. When you say it's not used to, Mr. Stevens said clearly, it's used to double check the GM's report. He said that.
No, I didn't say that.
Yes, sir, you did. I wrote it. I have it specific.
Well, he didn't mean it.
I didn't say it. I didn't say double check.
Yes, sir, you did. I
No, I
wrote
didn't
word for word. Mr. Stevens, it's on the recording.
well,
I can tell
okay,
you because
we'll look at the video.
you surprised me when you said it. I wrote it immediately.
It is used absolutely in conjunction and has been with the GM's report. In other words, it's a checklist to see those things which have been outstanding actions and which we would expect to hear in the GM's report. We don't go down the list and double check what the GM said. But on the other hand, if you go through your report and we don't hear something, and when it is a timely action item, then we certainly can ask you about it. We do it anyway.
Correct.
Yeah, let me just add one
With
thing.
or without a list.
The way it has worked in the past, Tom, also, and I remember, Bob, when Bill Rako asked you as vice president to take responsibility for this, okay?
Yes.
And I remember your first couple times, you went through everything on the list. And then that got modified, and it would be like, does anybody have any comments to make on it? So it's not something that we need to go down the list.
No.
It simply should be in front of us. And if there's anything that catches your eye that you want to inquire about it.
Yeah, that's
But
what we used to
remember,
do.
you methodically go through each item, and I don't view that as being of value at all.
I'm going to
Okay?
clarify this. This is a board of directors
Tool.
tool.
Period.
Okay? This is for us to manage what we're doing, what we're asking for updates on, things like that. That's why, in the midst of this, quite frankly, the light went on in my head. This should be a president's list, not a general manager's list. When we put the agenda together, we will appropriately go through the list and make sure we're getting updates on things we need. It is not Bob's job to manage us, per se, in that sense. So I think we can move beyond, we're clearly...
Well, maybe. You're talking in general terms.
Well, of course I am. And so we're having a
Until we
discussion.
see a
We're not
list.
voting on it.
And we're going into a third hour of this meeting, too.
But my question, specifically, gentlemen, if you look at the GM's list that you guys have on this, I've had nothing to do with this build-up, okay? Item 6, dog park. Is that really something I should be reporting monthly to you gentlemen? Because if it's on the list, potentially you have a right to ask me that. You could anytime, but I will tell you, being a board member and being in this role for the last year, if it's in front of you, you're going to ask me about it. I don't mind you asking, but it does become a to-do list for the GM. Fact. So you can dance around it and say it's not, but fact of the matter, that's exactly what it is.
Well,
and if that's what you intend to do, I just need to know that.
Take the dog park as a good example. Any one of the things on this list are good examples of different kinds of things. The dog park is something that the board voted and approved.
We did.
Okay.
Correct.
Subject
It
to.
is not unreasonable at all for us, after months go by, or weeks or whatever, to want to hear something about what the status of the dog park is. I don't know what the status. I don't know if I put that. I don't think I put it on the list, but
These are very, in my opinion, you're really trying to, and I don't use the term lightly, I don't even like the term, but these are micromanagement tools, quite frankly.
Suppose I get a year from now and I'm still wondering what happened to the dog park.
Mr. Stevens, respectfully, you gentlemen passed that they voted they had to raise $15,000 before we moved forward.
Right.
Respectfully, that's what you decided. So therefore, when they get close to that point, I will come back to the board and say, gentlemen, because I talk to Jack Leverling on a regular basis, they're up to $5,000 now, but I can quickly see them ramping up. When we get closer, I then need to fine-tune my proposal on cost to build the park, which I will do. That's my responsibility, and I will bring it to you. I have not used a list like this to bring you my general manager's report once this year. And arguably, I'd say I've done a very good job with it. If I had not, you guys would not have offered to renew the contract. And here we are not 30 days later, and you're telling me now you want to apply a management tool for these. It's just odd to me to bring that up at this point, with the exception of we're sliding it in because we have a new board member who does not know that it's not something we haven't been used, and from whence it came. They're my concerns. This is a management tool.
It is something we have used, and we've
We
used
have.
very successfully in the past.
Under different
And-
conditions, sir.
Yes,
I don't know that they are
The original
different
POW list was put forward because at the time, there were a lot of things that were falling through the
Slipping through the
cracks
cracks.
and
That's
not
correct.
handled properly by
That's
the
correct.
previous general manager.
And which now, when they fall through the cracks, we get to read about in Thomas' column.
No, sir. The fact that you were upset yesterday about the IRS issue is
However
a great
accurate they
example.
may be.
An email was
Yeah.
sent to you. You did not. That's on you, sir. That's not my fault that you didn't respond. You were upset with me yesterday for not providing information.
No,
This
I
list-
wasn't upset with you.
Sir,
I read the article.
Point of order. Point of order.
Gentlemen.
These are personal issues. Let's-
Correct.
Let's,
And that's what I'm
I
saying.
mean,
We need to take it out of personal management tool and allow me to do my job.
Excuse me.
let's move
Yes,
along.
sir.
Tom,
We've had the discussion on this topic. We're not voting on anything.
right.
Issues have been raised. Bill, you and I will work on this.
And we can go through this here
We will
real
go
quick.
through this. We'll
Okay.
go through it. I think
Okay.
everybody got a chance to air their position on this, and that's all we need to do in a discussion. So that's what we've done. We're going to move on.
Okay. Looking at the board of directors portion of this, we've already talked about the county meetings. We've already talked about the fire department. We've already talked about the amenity resolution. Okay, where we are is with Golf Advisory Committee. What's the status? Do we have one, or are we going to have one? Resurrecting it?
I'm back, and I'm going to look into that. I'm going to have some conversations. I'll come back. May have some thoughts. I may have some thoughts, but we need to resolve that one way or the other.
Come back in October?
We
with
do,
that?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, done. Comprehensive plan letter?
That's been done.
Done. Okay, so that's done. And the bridge status repairs?
That I have begun to reach out, but that's still on my to-do.
That's an important, that's a good example, I
Okay.
think, that we can lose
Okay.
track of. Particularly when you read things in the paper and such, and so.
Okay. Okay, looking at the general manager, are there any specific items there, of those 8, that any board member needs a question answered on that?
Well, we talked about it yesterday with Bob and Tom, Carrollton Lane.
Okay. Good
And that is
example.
something that I read.
Yeah, I would like to know what the
in-
status of
in
that
the
is.
paper.
Okay.
And in fact, what I read was, I thought, in error.
Well, what we read in the paper is not always accurate.
No,
so,
I know.
So.
I know it's not. But
You can
it's-
bet on that.
But if you do read it in the paper,
Yeah.
then you have to know what is accurate.
I understand.
And
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that's a good example. I mean, I would like to understand
Okay.
where that is.
Hey, Mr. General Manager, could you tell us something about Carrollton
I'll
Lane?
pull the email right now to give you the update.
While
While he's doing that, yeah.
While he's pulling that up, I just have a thought on Carrollton Lane from personal experience. Last several weeks, I've had an opportunity to drive up or down there for personal reasons or whatever, and people, it's a real wide street, and people kind of driving on the wrong side of the road. They're coming at you all kind of directions that maybe we need to put when this comes to fruition, maybe we need to put a yellow line down the middle there, just like we have with Clubhouse Drive.
Like a regular street.
She just, on Clubhouse Drive has.
It's my understanding that there
You're
have
gonna do
been,
that.
people are doing that or some people.
Well, if we put a yellow line down there, that's a traffic violation.
We have a very serious situation over there, folks, where we've got people doing things they should not be doing.
Disregarding the signs.
Everything.
It's a police.
There's a whole list of things that's a police issue at this point.
Well, and the yellow line would create a traffic violation.
In order for the, in reference to time here, Bob, would you please just forward us an email with an update on Carrollton, unless you got it.
Yeah.
Go for it. You got it in front of you. Go ahead.
We reached out to Mr. Frank Atkins back mid-July, mid-August, August 16th, to discuss what our request was. I've reached out on a phone call to John Tustin, did not get an answer. I called at the county level, because it eventually gets to him.
Right.
Then to Mr. Mason, did not get an answer. I tried to follow up when Mr. Stevens asked me yesterday, but it was late in the day and I couldn't get a hold of anybody. So, my next course of action is to send them each directly an email asking what the current update was. I even followed up with Public Works to confirm what I'm telling you is accurate. And that was per a conversation you asked me yesterday. I was prepared to answer it today. So that's where we are.
I'll tell you what the county's going to do. They want to go like this and put
And
it
that's
right back on us.
Well,
and everybody down there knows it.
we already have, letters from the county attorney and the general manager. I mean, everything's in the packet that Bob
Some of
gave us.
it's not crystal clear as to what they're accepting responsibility for, though.
We had this discussion yesterday, and I think it is, if the one way of reading it, it clearly states in there that the county council says they don't have control of this, it's up to us. And then the other part of the document we talked about yesterday says yes, but they have to establish whether there's a yellow line down the middle of the road, what the standards are.
Right.
And the reality is Bob has been reaching out, trying to get an answer at this point, and that's where we are.
Frank Filippi of the Colonial Village asked me 2.5 weeks ago about, and that's why I know right where it is, because I was trying to get him an answer of the exact process the county was going to require of us to do it. I've yet to get that answer back.
Okay.
So that's where we are, working the issue.
Is it not feasible to, I thought at the time we passed this by the board, that in fact we would be able to simply say, county, here's what we are going to do, send it down to them. Is there any violation of county laws or anything that is not to get their approval? Just say, this is what we're going to do. And the second part of that, and it was in the motion, was to find out for certain, because it was ambiguous, as to whether or not Carrollton Lane was part of the easement, was included in the easement properties, because the letter from Ed Hammonds, questioned that and said we needed to find that out. So those are two things that are standing there. I believe that we can say, this is what we're going to do. We're not in violation of any county laws, and notify them, and then just do it.
I think that would work.
Yeah.
Based on their what we're doing. Move forward on that.
I'm finding this valuable, just get an update on some of these things. And my specific next question is number 7. Yes, the lawsuit was dismissed, but where do we stand where does the county stand, Ocean Pine / county, with the Pinehurst drainage plan? I wouldn't have thought to ask that had I not seen it here.
I briefed it last month.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed
report. No, they have a committee that was established, of which my wells are on the committee. We were scheduling for
who's they, so I can keep up
the
with
county.
The county, okay.
The board. The county commissioners requested a committee of 9 people be formed to. I went over this last month. I know
the organizational meeting.
In the last GM report,
what last meeting?
The last GM report I gave,
which was
would have been
July,
would not have been August.
July. Okay,
July.
not last month. July. Okay.
Yeah, I did discuss
Okay, fine.
And they're coordinating the meeting. There's a county commissioner on the group. I don't have the letter here because I provided it there by
Jimmy's on the group. Yeah.
And we are to further discuss the issue for options. I spoke to, I want to say it was John Tustin's office, and they pushed the meeting back to the next month. They haven't rescheduled the meeting yet.
Okay. So in the 2 months plus since July, nothing's happened I'm playing. The county's got a group of 9 people. You're involved in it.
Yes.
2. Okay.
They're not a hurry. They're not a hurry.
They're not in a hurry.
Because they do not have the funds to do the drainage changes that
Understand.
have to be made up.
That's okay.
They won't for years.
You know, I have it's still important, but, you know, there's not this pending
But as
litigation.
an example, I gave you an update on it in July. When I have a new update, just the county meeting or
By the way, Bob,
Yes.
one of the things that you would, I'm pointing to Bill at this, as again, how we previously used these. And if you look at the pending action list right now, if it had been running, you know, we would see GM briefed in July, boom, boom, boom. It would be over on the actions side of it. So that's the last status. And I said, well, Pete and I could both say we don't remember that. But on the other hand, we know it happened and we know it was there. That's what this
And nothing's
action
happened
list
since,
is for.
so,
And
okay.
nothing's happened since. That's
Done.
done.
All right. Now, how about IRS issue? I do want to comment on the IRS issue.
That's going to be the last comment on this, because we'll move on. Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, that's on it. I keep hearing things like, what are we doing? My understanding, ladies and gentlemen, is, well, there's no lady here. This is in the hands of the court. I'm sorry, board members. Board members. I'm addressing my fellow board members, okay? There's nothing to be done. We have filed our brief with the Court of Appeals. The Treasury Department and IRS have filed theirs with the Court of Appeals. There is nothing for Ocean Pines to do. And I hear people from time to time, well, what are we doing? What's going on? Well, nothing is going on. The court will determine when it takes oral arguments in the case, just as does the Supreme Court. And this is just one level below the Supreme Court. It will decide.
Well, the common question, though, Pete, and I think we probably agree on the answer to this one, is, yeah, but what, do you have any kind of a contingency plan if you lose for paying back the money? That's
Writing a check.
a commonly asked question.
Of course it is.
And my general answer is that no, because, you know, that could take, losing could take different forms and with different requirements and so forth. Unless we know what they are,
Right.
we can't really, you know, speculate on what we do.
Exactly. And so I think the better course is to do exactly this.
Wait.
We know it's $1 million tab. Everybody knows that.
Exactly.
Well, why don't we just put through a new dues increase in case we need it? We'll put, you know, I mean, obviously we're not, I think we're taking the right course of action by just waiting.
The only
Exactly.
thing I will, and I'm going to wrap this up with this comment. I absolutely agree. We've done everything we can do. All we can do is wait now for the courts to announce what they're going to do. What I have asked the Budget and Finance Committee to do, in deference to what you and Dave both said, it is, no, in reality, there are various options of what might most likely happen if we lose, and to get proposals from them on what they think if we lose it all, if we lose half of it, if we have to pay it all at once, can we do, you know, what are the options we think are most likely to happen, and then more importantly, how do you pay for it? I do not want to wait till the day we hear the ruling come back and then sit down and start figuring out what to do. So I have asked that group to begin that work. They're not going to be finished, you know, the next month, but I have asked for that group to start looking at that so that we're not standing there flat-footed when the answer comes back.
Well, your treasurer has given some thought to this, by the way.
sure you have.
I have some thoughts.
I'm glad.
You had at least two thoughts. Comment.
Yeah.
Okay, just a closing comment with all this, what we're putting together. Now, I hear a lot of what we used to do, we used to ride around in horse and buggy. Okay? This is a new board, so we're going to do what we're going to do as a board, and we'll decide as a board what we're going to do.
With all due respect, that's exactly what I said a moment ago.
Yes, exactly. I understand. I'm just re-emphasizing that. You know,
Okay.
Okay?
CPI. Take them to jail, flag them.
Again, sir, point of order.
Agenda.
Discussion that we passed, we've already talked about the proxy forms. Prior to that, however, was an item called discussion of bulk mailing errors from Dave Stevens. Is that still?
No. I think Diane covered that.
Was that adequate? We didn't take it off. I mean, you didn't take it off, so I'm just asking.
I thought I did.
You didn't.
Yeah, I thought we moved both of those up to be part
All
of
right,
the
so
Diane.
I've been sleeping. I apologize, Mr.
All right, CPI. Keep you straight, Dan. Make sure I don't miss anything.
You're on track now.
Okay.
Hey, we only got 2 to go.
We're going. We're
2
moving.
violations
the opportunity to screw up has been diminished.
They've both been notified. You can see by the pics of what's on the properties. Let's start with the first one at 74.
Chestnut? And Stephen? Crest Stephen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. I don't know why you have this long meeting.
We're just
a $10 million company. What do we need to meet for 3 hours?
The request is to send OPA attorney for action to have this cleaned up. You see the request has gone out. Letters were sent, follow-up inspection, second letter, followed up. The folks have not complied, and you can see what the neighbors are looking at.
Are they using the Goody Hill container for storage or to haul the junk away?
I don't know if it's a contractor. I don't know.
Goody Hill, right, you know what they do, right?
So
At least this thing.
the request is we take the next step and go have the OPA attorneys take action.
No, I move we take action.
Yeah.
We need to act on this too, formally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Can I ask just as a sidebar where they stand on the delinquent list?
I was just going to make the observation, both of these cases that we have in front of us are delinquent 4 years.
Correct.
The pattern continues.
Okay.
The pattern continues.
Yep,
All right.
they're delinquent.
Are they, yeah, I was wondering where they stand in the foreclosure process.
I can't answer that. Can you answer that?
No, I don't have any sheets with me.
Okay.
Next item, or the next violation is the trailer.
That's on Moonraker?
Yes, sir.
That's been there
Sent
for
the
a
letters, follow up, yes. It's been there.
Yeah, for a long
Let
time.
me just ask a procedural question here, and it's not a matter of what we gotta do next, but it's just, how many times are we gonna go through this process with this person? And this is the 5th year in a row.
It could continue for 20 years, the way things are set up. All he has to do is move that out for one day, and then we literally have to start all over again. So,
I think we have.
No, it's not quite that simple. It's not quite that
a
simple.
week.
No. Kerry,
Once they go for incompliance.
no. Kerry explained this to one of our meetings. Once we've gotten court action approved, if the same individual has further violations, it's easier to go back in when the court has already rendered a judgment in Ocean Pines' favor. Okay?
That's just
So
the
you
court
can
action.
facilitate the follow-up violations easier than the initial violations. Right, Bob?
Correct, but there has to be a consent order to remove.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's-
Right.
You still have to go through legal action, but it's easier.
But once
It's expedited.
once you have the consent order, if they fail to obey it, they're in contempt of court, amongst
Correct.
other things.
That's kind of where I was going,
Yeah.
Dan, is there not a next level?
No, there
court
is.
system that
That's-
you ought to be going to?
Now the court system owns it. They're in contempt of court,
Right.
Well, that's kinda
and the
where-
sheriff and the county are going
Right.
to come rolling in. So,
But we have to initiate
Yes.
that, but it's a much more expedited thing to get.
yes.
That's exactly why I raised the question.
Right.
It's one thing to send a formal letter
we just-
from the lawyers, another thing to say, hey, courts, these people are in contempt.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
we just,
you-
Because
we,
they're now part and parcel
So
to the
what is it
process.
we just
Go ahead.
advise the court.
No,
Right.
that's right. You can see it was removed
Need a
Right.
motion.
as of 10/25/10, but then the trailer's back on the property 7-8 months later, and we've got the violation starting over again. So it was removed for a period of time, and now it's back.
So I guess my question is, do we request the court to impose a ruling that has a long time frame on it that says thou shalt not return this trailer?
Which was exactly my point.
There are limited timeframes the court allows us, and that's why we send it to our attorney. They know the rules, and they do. We try to enforce it as aggressively, but there are certain limitations. And
For us, but not necessarily for the court.
We have
Point
a
of
fast
order.
track procedure for these things.
We do need a motion on the second one.
We do, yes, we do. I'll move to take legal action on the second violation as well.
Second. Ready, second. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I've got some advisory board, and since we are in the midst of a change of the chairperson for the subs committee,
Yes, thank you.
Carol, we'll go ahead and suggest that.
Yeah, in addition to what Tom has in front of us, the Clubs Committee would like to have as their chairperson Carol Ludwig, and they acknowledge the fact that these board approved presidents. So as liaison to that committee, and we have the past chair sitting here, I would like to add to your agenda that Carol Ludwig be approved as the chairperson of that committee.
I'll make a motion.
I don't know that we need, that's the president.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I certainly have no,
It really needs to come from the president with the acquiescence of the board. It's not,
Without objection.
yeah, without objection. I'm
Yeah, it's
gonna
not a board
make that
motion,
happen. Okay. And due to the fact that we didn't have a chairperson, we did have another person joining that committee, gentleman who was recognized earlier here today. Mr. Les Purcell is
under great pressure, I signed off on that earlier today.
and I have signed off on it with your concurrence. There being no objection, I will take those actions.
Okay.
And the other two that were in your package, we have Anthony Nicholas, who is in addition to the tennis, which I have, as the liaison to them, I've signed off on that. And we have an addition to the comprehensive plan, Thomas Butler, signed off on by the chair, and the advisor. Without objection, I will also approve it.
No objections here.
Okay.
No objection.
I will say, though, it's very nice to see the forms and the committee chairs signing off on them, and the board liaisons signing off on them, as was the intended procedure. It's refreshing.
Tightening things up.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President.
I would move to adjourn, Mr. President.
Actually,
Too late.
Do you have something else?
you withdraw it with me?
Okay. Enjoy the time.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, whoa. Before we adjourn, very important, he was out of the room when we talked about the next meeting. And by the way, there's another reason I thought of that perhaps Friday would not be a good day, because our seventh board member may be, in fact, be back next week, whereas she will not be here on Friday. So would it not serve us well to include her by waiting a day or two?
I think that's a good idea, actually.
She's only gone 1 week, and I think this is the week. So what we did was, when you were out of the room, we said, other than on Thursday, it was suggested by Tom, I suggested that I go off that day.
For what?
Oh, you weren't here for any part of it?
No. Board of Directors objectives is what it was.
That's how much.
You were there for that.
Yeah, exactly.
You weren't there for the count, so he wanted to do it Thursday. I said, well, why don't we do it Friday morning? And then I realized that we could probably have 7 members if we were able to do it next Monday or Tuesday. That would be nice to include the one on newly elected.
Especially fine.
Does anybody know,
Tuesday.
Sarah, do you know when she's back? Bob? Cruz, I know that.
Well, we just
You know?
for next Tuesday.
If it's Tuesday, then for me, if we could have it in the morning, yeah, that'd be fine.
9
Have a
o'clock
doctor's
Tuesday morning.
appointment in the
Is that okay?
afternoon.
I just think it'd be nice to have her included.
Yeah.
Tuesday mornings. Good.
Tuesday.
Okay.
9 o'clock next
Okay.
Tuesday.
What's the date of next Tuesday?
Discussion.
9 o'clock right here.
Now I will take the motion.
Time,
9 o'clock.
And by the way, Dan, just a matter of, that's usually Ray's job. I mean,
Yeah. My seat, my job. Out of here.
Do I hear a second?
Just say second and we're gone, will you?
Yeah, we're out of here.
Thank you.
So it's going to be Tuesday morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, what
9
do you say?
a.m.
9
Special
a.m.
meeting.
Right in this room in a different seat.